Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming. I know it's a season of so many events at the moment because now that we don't have Corona anymore, everyone is organizing something. So I do appreciate that you took the time to actually come and support us here. There will be some more people coming in because from what we gather, some have ended up in the wrong location as well because algebra, this is the new campus, as most of you know. Like I said. Okay. Uh, so once again, thank you for coming to this sort of a kick-off event, I dare say, of Croatian Startup Ecosystem Association, because we realized that we needed to do something and organize and coordinate ourselves if we really want to have a startup ecosystem. Because from what I gather and how I say it, we have all the ingredients, but we have not really still mixed them, combined them, and baked them into a cake. And this creation of this association is really a push to really use the momentum that is existing at the moment on the Croatian startup scene, so that we can make an ecosystem that will enable many more startups to be created here in Croatia and to have them stay here and operate from here and make it easier for them. So today, we have done a number of things already in the past few months since we officially announced that we're going to be launched. But this is the first of the events and meetups that are supposed to help strengthen the community and help share the experiences and knowledge on a much wider scale, because we are doing it now, but it's more on like one-on-one, over coffee, over lunch. Let's spread the knowledge, because the beauty of this community is that everyone is really willing to share and willing to help. So that is why today we have also already gathered some great speakers, Croatian startup founders, some international we'll see as well, and also representative from Estonia and Estonian startup scene, because we really do want to know how did they make it happen that Estonia is now the country with the highest number of unicorns per capita. Is it higher than Israel, Mr. Ambassador? I like that. Awesome. So without further ado, let's kick off the program. Actually, I did want to. So you have the agenda. We are a little bit late with the start, of course, but Croatian Academic Quarter and all of that. So I would like to invite Eve Peterson, head of Startup Estonia, who will and our VP Legal, Marijana Šarolić-Robić, to have a little bit of a chat on what did Estonia do right and what we can copy from them.
Thank you. Eva, I will just move the chair. I'm really happy. So it's going to be like a coffee, and then you can listen what we will talk about. I'm really happy that we have you, because Estonia has put a really startup community on the EU level on a really high, I would say on a pedestal, and had definitely made an impact and made, I would say, like a benchmark for all other ecosystems. You are running organizations, Startup Estonia, and I would like to use this, I would say, 35, 40 minutes to learn as much as possible how did you do it and how you are doing it. So please just say a few words about the association as itself and how do you institutionally function. And then we will go to the details how you did it.
Yes, thank you. And first of all, good morning to everyone. It's great to see so many people here, and I'm very honored, very humbled, and a little bit nervous. So if you see my mic shaking, then that's because I have a bit of a stage fright. Anyway, I've had a very warm welcome, and like Heidi said, you do have the ingredients, you do have the people who, as we know, are the most valuable source of making any community work. So that's a great start. So Startup Estonia is actually not an organization by itself. It's a governmental program. Although we do operate as an organization, we do have, people, we have goals, we have our budget, which we have to keep. But it's run by the Estonian Innovation Agency, so there's a lot more going on over there. But I think what's the most important thing is to have any entity, regardless of the form or how it's brought together, if it's an organization or if it's a program, to really have that startup ecosystem development in mind, to really have that who's only basically to be responsible for this. Otherwise it will fall between different silos or different ministries or different stakeholders. So everybody's a little bit interested or caring about it, but it really has no accountability or who's monitoring it or who is taking action to improve any measure that should help. So that's about that. We're funded by the EU regional funds. So it's like a 7-year project basically, which we define where are we now, what's good, what's not good, what should be the next steps taken to achieve something in the next 10 years. And then we go year by year, making a yearly draft of actions and focuses. Focus, very important keyword. You can't do everything at once, so pick your battles one by one. And of course, you can't achieve something higher before you've done groundwork first. So that's also.
This is something that I wanted to talk to you yesterday when we were preparing for this chat. Basically, you said you did the diagnosis first. So your ground zero was definition of startup.
I would say yes, because you see 2005 to 10, things were starting to happen. Skype had exited. It was visible that there is a momentum, like here is now, but we didn't know what to do about it, or who are these people, who are these founders, who are the employees, where they come from, what technologies are being developed. How much money they need or are raising or anything like that. So basically, it's very important to start with defining what a startup is, because of this focus. For example, Ireland hasn't defined a startup by the startup model as we see it. Startup. What makes a startup is it's really highly globally scalable, fast scalable. It has a technological, innovative component. But in Ireland, it's just about phases. If you are a beginner, you're a small company, you're a startup. After that, you're an SME, and so after that.
So they blended it into general, let's say, entities, corporate entities, whatever, entrepreneurial entities, and they didn't distinct the startup as you did in Estonia.
Yes, so if you see them, for example, how to look behind the numbers as well, they're really, really high up on the number of startups. But what it means is not necessarily the type of startup that we mean as a really highly scalable technological...
Having technological core.
Yes.
And when you did, after you did definition, you basically did the diagnose. We talked about having diagnose on two levels, economy level, economics, figures, numbers that are important, and also demographics. Can you tell us more about why did you choose these two layers?
Yeah, well, first you do have a lot of output for numbers. First, you can really, you can diagnose what is happening, who are, what are the people there, what are your strengths, what kind of technologies are already being, for example, developed. You can see how they're doing financially, how they're doing economically, and then you can address what issues there are. Of course, then you need some kind of place to put this data in. So we created a database, which is not really a complicated thing in itself. I mean, it's just a way of maybe creating to get the numbers updated, to get some kind of link between either it's the tax system or some statistical entity of the government that you can actually bring in the numbers easily, regularly. Import the data. So that's what we did, and it gives you really a few things. First, if you know who the people are and you are gathering them in some type of database, you kind of bring it out of the garage, so to speak. So you're not some special people in your special bubble doing very cool things, but it actually becomes a public ownership. And it's easier to talk to any stakeholder, either it's a politician or another ecosystem or organizations in the ecosystem, and really look at things how they are. Maybe they're bad, maybe they're good, but at least you know exactly, and everybody else knows. And then you can build a vision and compare, like what are the steps need to be taken.
What are your goals?
So it's easier to talk. And also, it's important, like we said on the podcast yesterday, to really do heavy PR work. And for that, you also need data. And third, maybe most important, is if there is any type of exceptions that you need to introduce into regulations, for example, the startup visa or stock option regulation, you need to define what it is in order to make those exceptions a rule somehow, to make them applicable.
Yeah.
So
yesterday when we talked, you mentioned that you use so-called a pyramid that basically helps you maintain the focus. Can you just reflect a little bit what kind of pyramid it is it, and what it is basically comprised of? What are the angles of the pyramid?
Sure. Well, it was just a matter of designing these 3 pillars basically that make an ecosystem, or that we have, or the components that we need to look at that need to work together. Sort of, that the planets have to align, so to speak. So you can't kind of have an ecosystem without resources. Money. You need to have funds. You need to have the investors who are ready to invest in startups, because with really fast growth rates, some do bootstrap, of course, but it's more like an exception than the rule. So is the financial market there? Is it working? So that was one component. So at the very beginning, maybe 10 years ago, there were direct investments done from public funds to really, increase the trust in startups and to attract then private funds to join. And at some point, years later, when you have already enough private capital available, you pull out, the direct investments, and now the state only does cornerstone, basically silent co-investments with private funds. And the number 2 is regulations. So we always have to look at, if there is money available, can they, be used? Can you really grow? And like you said, we want to keep our startups registered in Estonia and keep all the benefits coming back to the country, because if you as a country put your effort in, of course you expect the returns to come to your country. So the visa, one very, very major, let's say, thing in the regulations, which was done in 2017 and now updated next year with a scale-up visa as well. Stock options, very important, because as we all know, startups don't have the resources to pay high salaries, at least in the beginning. So stock options is a very good way to keep and motivate people. This was done 2017, and now also we see that it needs to be updated. So it's
a corner of friendly regulation.
Yeah. So and there are a couple of other things, like losing the rule to have when you transfer shares, buy or sell shares, that you don't need to get all of the people, shareholders, together into the same room.
Yeah, so it's a nightmare in a life, because especially if you have 5 or 6 or 10 people, and usually they are not even the same city, let alone the country.
Exactly.
Getting them the same very day with the notary or any other registration body is virtually impossible.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. So then of course we could use our digital infrastructure to kind of bring that in also in this aspect. So now when we look at this same triangle of having the resources, money, having the regulations, the third is the community. So without the community, bringing together the private and public sector, bringing together investors, bringing together founders, as well as the community organizations like incubators, accelerators, so everybody that has a role kind of really works together. I mean, we've had issues with, for example, rival hackathon makers being really, to themselves, and so we're there to a little bit encourage cooperation as well between different organizations, so that we get the maximum.
This is really important, because always when we basically talk of anything that you have more than 2 people on board, it's about community and the mindset and the vision and mission and the strategy you want to achieve, and how to basically maintain that mindset that we are all on board. We can say that we have to sell the vision, and we have to make stakeholders buy the vision. And in a startup world, this is extremely important, because as we all know, everything is basically rather, we can call it a hustle, but I would say it's dreaming big, it's hope, it's disruption, it's innovation, it's basically being human, but in a good sense. So you have to dare, and you have to inspire, and this is something that you have to constantly work on, and this is something that you are working on, and I know that you think, and we also share this vision, that this is really, really super important. This is all about, because all of the things we listed before are basically just enabling. They're just the pot we are going to put the ingredients on, and the community is the soup, is the outcome, the multiplier that will basically overfill to will overfill and overspill the whole society. So how do you do it? With the mindset and inspiration and getting everybody on board? Focus on the good stuff?
Focus on the good stuff, definitely. Celebrate successes. And also what we really do is we include the community members into the actions that we take. So whenever we make next plans or any change of direction, we really go through the community members to make sure that this is really what's needed. It's really easy to, like we said before, to make create our new strategy paper, just our team, and just present it like, ta-da, here it is, this is your vision. But it doesn't work like that. So we always run by the community members. Also, what we've done through our program finances is initiate basically the programs that didn't exist before. For example, we see that, there's too few female founders. And we don't really know what's being done about it, and we're not going to wait for the culture in the country to change, so maybe in 10 years it will be all very well. We just procure, basically. We say we are wanting to initiate a female founders meetup series or a female-only acceleration program. We put it up, and then the community organizations can apply to organize this. So what is very clear in our way of work is we do not organize things ourselves, not to keep this dependability on the Startup Estonia program, but to push those things going, and as we see in a few years or even 1 year, if this has been successful, then they can run it on their own. But to really get those things going. Another example is we have a separate mission to develop the eastern side of Estonia, which has been traditionally an industrial sort of old school region where like 4 years ago nobody had any idea what a startup is. But there is a focus in the government to also develop regional economy outside the capital. I don't know if this is an issue in Croatia or not.
Zagreb is also the capital in the central part of Croatia, and it's really a challenge to get on board all, especially the coastal cities. Continental don't have this, let's say, easy money from tourism, but the coastal part doesn't really. It's easier to rent instead of starting your own startup. So definitely we have this issue with the central Zagreb location that leads to, let's say, leaving out all the other parts of Croatia. So definitely working on the whole territory is something that we want to do.
Yeah, and it's good in two ways. One is you're giving a new life. Well, it takes a long time, of course. We started 3 years ago or 4, and we've gotten to the place where the mindset is a little bit changing. People are understanding what it is. There are initiatives. The country's biggest incubator has made their little like company there. Subsidiary in a way. There are young guys coming up wanting to make their own mentorship trainings or programs. So things are slowly changing, but they are. And this is bringing a whole new community into play. And what's good about it is that now that we see that money is more available than ever before. Companies are able to raise investments, but what's missing is a bigger resource, and that's people. So one is dealing with getting people from outside EU, and this is really, getting into the resources that we have available in the country, pulling everybody, mobilizing more people. So that's
this is
good in two ways.
With the demographics, because you basically, when you do the diagnose, you realize what kind of human talents or capabilities of skill sets you miss. And once you engage them within your own country, you basically have to import human talents. And this is the part you mentioned yesterday, that there at the beginning it was like, why do we need strangers, foreigners? And at the end you managed to reframe the story and basically to stick out the good sides of getting human talents on board, and not just for the startup community, but also for the whole society. So maybe just if you could address that also.
Yeah, it's always a very difficult issue. Bringing people in is something that the Minister of Interior is very, touchy-feely about, like being open versus being secure. It's always going to be a very sort of a tricky issue. But we know that startups thrive only when the knowledge transfer is very, very fluid, and when there are diverse teams. We know that for a fact. We just need to prove it now. We just need to show it. So what we can do with the demographic analytics is really to prove that that the highest performing startups have 30%, 25 to 30% foreign employees working in them.
Yeah, but those employees are highly, as you said,
and they
educated.
are exactly
they
because
have a specific skill sets.
They are, because what is the sort of normal thinking is that if you bring people from outside, they are somehow leftovers or something from the society. But in fact, they are higher paid. They have higher education than the Estonian employees. As an average. Let's say the percentage of higher education is higher among the foreign employees than it is. So we see that that knowledge is being brought in, and we see that it works. It's a tricky thing to get going, to really prove that it will be. But of course you need an advocate, or you need your own wingman somewhere higher up to help you with this issue. But we see that in the statistics. Yeah.
And something that we also reflected yesterday, and I think this is really important to emphasize today, is about the EU startup ecosystem, and how we do not, even as Croatia, as Estonia, or in EU in general, use all the benefits of having a single market, and how basically we are in a way losing opportunities of collaborating better and representing EU startups better, and also pushing the regulators, the MPs, in a direction to ease up the business, to make it possible to actually to be a Croatian startup and be present in the Estonian market or German market. And this is something that definitely is one of the things we want to work on. And just to reflect on that, you have already existing experience on that.
I've been part of the Startup Estonia network. European
Startup Network?
European Startup Network, now which Heidi is on the board as well. So you have really the direct access to push and pull everything that's being done there. We see the issues are the same, starting from language barriers. We don't see Europe, or people outside Europe don't see Europe as the the one pulling entity. People are lining up to get to the US. People are lining up to go to the Australia, or Canada now even, but not Europe, because it's more difficult. If you enter one country, you you had to choose right from the beginning which country you want to pick, because if you pick Croatia, then you probably have to speak this language and kind of get to know everything. Then as soon as you move somewhere else to the neighbors, you start all over again and all over again.
Even opening a bank account, we mentioned.
Opening different bank accounts, which is a nightmare in even one country. And that the same issues are addressed on the European level. I know that President Macron has initiatives to change this. One of the very important issues are also what we are struggling with is technology transfer, how to get all these university scientific discoveries into very successful businesses, which will of course be needed to save the world. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. This is really what we need. So the same issues are everywhere, but we can't coordinate because we are used to talking and making this, mapping, which is a lovely word, to map the situation. We're very good at that. But who takes ownership? Because all of these acts that we are signing, like these goodwills or let's say the best practices all over Europe, which I think has been signed also by Croatia, these are not binding. They're not legally binding. So you can say, yeah, this is a good idea to have it very easy and cheap to open a company. Let's have English as the general startup language. Let's everybody have a working startup visa. You can sign it. But who takes ownership? That's why it's a good thing that also in these initiatives, you have to kind of point the representative of the country who's going to be the contact person and the accountable entity to make sure that this goes through. So it's really good that you're doing the Croatian Startup Association, because like we talked yesterday, who do you even talk to, or who is that person that can see where we are? It's a long work. I'm not sure how fast it can be solved, but what is kind of good is that we see that the same issues are everywhere. We have kind of just to act, but we are scared of making mistakes. Politicians are scared because an election is coming. What if this doesn't work? Then I will be to blame. But maybe coming to that risk part, this is something that has to be somewhere higher up acknowledged, that without taking risks, there will be no leapfrogging, there will be no kind of grabbing the future by its horns and really making the most of it, not just to save the world, but also being the country that will make this happen, that will export new technologies to the world rather than buying them in from US.
And this is something that sorry. You mentioned yesterday that it all started, politics are super important. We are aware of that because they are basically elected by us and they represent us in a way they perceive we need. Maybe they are wrong, maybe they are right, but it is like it is. After the Skype momentum, you said there was a person in your government who identified that momentum and grab it and was brave enough to pursue it and basically introduced startups as a part of your economy, as a part of your society. So
yeah, we were lucky at that point because governments change, and if you happen to try to do it at the wrong moment, it may be more difficult. But we had a really pro business and pro openness and pro startups IT minister. We do have an IT minister, yeah. So it was, of course, not completely initiated by the minister. There were already by then these active founders who came together and said, okay, now in order for us to go on from here and to start new businesses, because Skype was, it kind of brought new people and brought new money, and it wasn't just used on expensive cars, it was used to create new businesses. And they put together kind of proposals that in order to do this, we need completely, to change. And the minister agreed. And this was actually very crucial moment. Like really realizing that this type of companies need a different type of support. And we are a really small country. We're 1.3 million. We don't have any natural resources. We don't have even this beautiful weather that you have. We're 12 degrees in Tallinn.
This was my punchline, just to have it
Sorry,
as inspiration. Don't worry, we'll come back on that.
Anyway, but that was realized, I think, already in the 90s, that if we don't have anything, we just have, this was the president at that time, Toomas Hendrik Ilves, who had been living in the States, and he was like, okay, there is this new thing called the internet. I don't know what it is, but I've seen it work miracles. People are connected. This is something that we can use in Estonia to leapfrog something that we haven't done. We haven't done the industrial revolution thing. We've been occupied by countries during too long of a time. So we can kind of step ahead and use this thing called internet. I don't know how, but then he put computers in all schools. And when you talk to founders, then everybody says how they started was playing games at their computer schools.
Yeah.
So, and they turned into developers, etc., etc., etc. So at that point, when Skype exited, it was already known somehow from the 90s that, there was something to do with computers and the internet, and you can actually achieve something. So they didn't know what they were, doing. And the first Startup Estonia program was written very, let's say, general, because we didn't know how or what will work. So it was kind of, let's do a little bit of marketing, let's bring the community together, let's do community events, let's go abroad. We were all over the world, really talking about what startups are, what we are doing in Estonia, why you should come there, to really transfer the knowledge. So we didn't know.
And this is something that we in Croatia, we love excuses. Because we are small, we are just 3.8 or 9 million people. Many left, the skillful ones, the good ones, the best of us, whatever. We don't even have a market, so if you want to deploy something, you have to go abroad. The regulation is awful, there are no government subsidies, the taxes are a nightmare, there is no rule of law, meaning no certainty. So basically there is no reason why to do it. And then when you look at just the statistics to see that the way Estonia is positioned, your geolocation is not as ours. You're as small as we are, even smaller. Even thinking about the way the nature functions, we have more sunny days than you do. So you didn't use your excuses. You basically work with what you have and used your, let's say, handicaps as your privileges, as your upsides, not downsides.
Yeah, well, to comment that people are leaving, that's a good thing actually, because then they gather knowledge, experience from elsewhere, and it's just, you have to hope or do something that they come back.
Yeah.
But leaving in itself is not bad. About the being small, I think we have turned it as a favor to us, because we know that there is nobody we can rely on.
Yeah.
There is literally nothing we can
and
rely on.
Everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody, and we have to do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we want to kind of, make an impact or really do something big, we have to look at the globe as the market. And this is really crucial, how the founders of startups are viewing their possibilities, let's say. They're not thinking, let's take first Estonia, then the Baltics, then maybe if I'm lucky, I can maybe go to Finland. No. It's only looking at what the US needs or what UK or...
Big market.
Because when Bolt started, they knew that Uber was all over the States already, so they're like, I'm not touching this. But Africa, there's this whole continent without Uber. So they took Africa, and now they're all over Europe and Africa. And of course, it's not the globe, but it's a pretty big part of the globe. So to really think very big and to not solve this little problem that I have only at home and maybe scale it to your neighboring countries, but being small, being on your own, just, how to make it.
And to close up the session, you mentioned something, I wrote it down yesterday. You have, in a way, founder association, because a lot of people here in the audience, the one who are we aiming for and who we want to support are founders. And basically the strength of an ecosystem, of a startup ecosystem is in founders. And those knowledge transfer, failures transfer, support is something that you can't put the price tag on, but it's basically precious. And over the dinner we had last evening, we saw how 3 generational startups can unbelievably support each other and open one another door that it could take you as a just beginner to basically spare you 2 or 3 years of your life, literally,
exactly.
because they already did it. So this is something that you have, and I want you to basically inspire founders today and to give a final remark how important support and these small parks that basically happen all the time, the sparks between the founders for the ecosystem and for the startup community as itself.
It is the most important thing, I think. So no matter what you do in politics, if the founders are not sharing, it's maybe tricky. But there is the Founders Association. It's founder based, so it's not company based. So there's people that are members. There's about 1,400 startups registered in our database, and the Founders Association gathers about 125 or so most active founders. They're serial entrepreneurs and whatnot. They don't always see in person. They have a Slack channel, other channels, but what they do is, for example, startup awards. So this is not done by us. We've been supporting them, of course, but it's a yearly event which they specifically called it's Founders from Founders. 2 founders from founders. So they nominate, they ask the community to nominate the best in several categories. There is a huge show, there's voting, there's prizes, they come together, they really appreciate each other. So that's one thing. Of course, all the big startup events, everybody's there. Last week there was Latitude 59. It was sold out days before it even happened. It was just crazy how people yearn for human connection and interaction, and they do learn from each other because of when I see the news, a spin-off or 2 guys from this company, 2 guys from that company, very successful startups have done their own spin-off from these ones, and this is how it's kind of refeeding this cycle. But what I want to mention maybe at the end of here is Estonian Startup Mafia.
Okay.
It's like a hashtag Estonian Mafia or Estonian Startup Mafia, I may be mistaken, which was just started as a joke, but somehow it's already, when you even are in the States, people know, you're the Estonian Mafia people. It's because of this thing. There's a Mafia Wall of Fame in one of the co-working spaces or a startup hub, which is every time a startup gets to a certain level of investment, I think, or maybe some other parameters as well, they put a plaque on the wall. Really, it's a wall of fame. So small things like this, which are kind of encouraging or really showing respect, and like they say, they are humans. They want to be important. They want to be recognized, and they do it to each other, and they really give back to the community as well. So these startup events, they're basically their own funded. So small things like this, and this Croatian Mafia, maybe could be the next thing.
I see people nodding. Definitely we'll have to find a free wall to put the Croatian Mafia, Startup Mafia.
Yeah.
Just Startup Mafia, no Mafia. So Eve, thank you very much. I really enjoyed the talk. I know we could go for ages now.
We could.
But something as a promise, because you can hold me accountable. We'll meet a year or maybe shorter, and then we will show to you what we did in a year That
Yeah, we
just
have to pull up this document where you
Of
put
course,
it in
I will
writing
keep- I
what
will
will
keep
be the
my- yeah.
KPIs for next year. So
So thank you for showing to us how you did it and disclosing a little bit of details. Coming to Croatia, being here in person, it's a privilege to have you in person. We could do it hybrid, but it's not the way we should do it anyway. So thank you very much, and please give a
Thank
big
you,
round of
thank
applause
you.
to you. Thank you. Now I have a rare honor and privilege because we agreed that we will do announcing. The MC is between ourselves. I don't see Maya, so I'll ask her to come in. Okay. Now you will see who the Croatian startup mafia at the moment is, or the people who are behind this roll up, and the board people who were crazy enough to start this and who are crazy enough to invite you and inspire you to join us, because we really need everybody on board. And really, I think we can match Estonia in 3 to 5 years. Yeah. Okay, good. Did somebody wrote it down? So please, here we need members of our board to join. Darko, please come. Darko is from Ebotica AI. We have Maja Brkljačić from Algebra.
Maya says that she will just say hi.
She will just say hi. She won't sit on the panel. Okay. Božidar is here, or Božo, come. Please, Božidar, come. I won't say Božo. Sorry. Božidar is here. No, we decided he wants the longer version of the name, and we will... And of course, our president, Heidi. So if Maya is not going to sit, it seems that... Yeah. Okay, good. So I have to stay
making sure
here.
everything is working and the people know where to enter.
Good. So I have
She's
to
our
stay.
host.
Okay. So Heidi, take a lead.
Oh gosh.
Why we did this?
I don't know.
Well, we have talked about it in several instances, but kind of the entire idea and the concept came about almost a year ago. So Eva knows there was this initiative from the European Commissioner, Maria Gabriel, who's in charge of education, research, youth, innovation, and the fifth thing, I keep forgetting what it is, to see what can be done to help EU startups and EU unicorns thrive, so in the EU, so we can have them remain and not leave to the UK, which is no longer EU, or the US. And at that moment, she invited all the representatives of national startup ecosystems from all the EU member countries. And I think it's because Mr. Spiegel that I ended up being a representative of Croatia, yeah. And at that moment, we realized that Croatia was the only EU country without a national startup association or organization. And there we were represented with Croatian AI Association, because I also serve as the VP of that association. And at that moment, someone asked me, why don't we have a startup organization? And it was it's a good question. We didn't really have an answer. We do have several organizations, associations, because we are a small country. Everyone knows everyone as well, so we talk a lot. So co-founder of my startup is Davor Runje, who's the president of CISEX. So as you can imagine, we sit in the same room, so we do communicate a lot. But there was a need really to create an organization who is really focused on startups, because Cro AI is there, but not all startups are AI startups. CISEX also includes the entire tech IT scene, but there are also big service companies there that are not really startups. Hoop gathers the employers of Croatia, but again, there's a bunch of various companies, various entities there, and there was nobody who was really focused on startups and making it easier for Croatian startups to start here, to work from here. And on the other side, suddenly we became a country with 2 unicorns, and we're having a momentum. So many startups really getting the spotlight, but you realize that they also kind of succeeded despite from being the Croatian startups, not because of it. And one thing led to another, as one would say. And we decided, so, okay, really, let's create an organization that would be some sort of a central point for all things startup. That could be also a contact point for many other players, organizations, and companies that want to help build Croatian startup ecosystems, but they didn't really know who to talk before. So here we have John Gasparac from PwC. So PwC has done a lot in Serbia, for example, but they wanted to help in Croatia. They just didn't know who to talk to and who to partner with, how to do something. So yeah, here we are. We decided to kind of try and change that and make it better for the existing startups, but also for many that are supposed to come. And people here are because it was like, do you want to help? And volunteer.
So I will just add to Heidi, because I remember when Davor said we should do a startup association. We were like, but we have it. And then we realized we don't have it in a right sense of word. And this is something that one of the reasons we did it was that we realized that everything is being done on coffee, over the lunch. You have to know somebody, then you do a connection email, or you have a conference where people meet. But nothing is done as structurally. There is no single point where the new, let's say, zero generation startups who are just aspiring to become, thinking about whether to become a startup can come and collect, basic information on what is to be a startup, how to get funded. This is why we got Božidar, because he knows all where the money is. He will talk about that. So listen carefully.
No pressure.
We wanted to have people like Darko, and who basically is somewhere, I would say, on earlier mature stage of his development of startups. So he already have like a lot of years of experience, and he can really help to somebody who is just beginning. But also we have people like Matija Žulj, who will join us afterwards, who's been here for 7+ years and really is a global company, but still is a startup company. And we really wanted to put all these people together to have really the strong forces of Croatian startup community and the spirit that we are all aware of. That whenever I've been in startup community since 2013 as a mentor, since then, whenever I ask anybody to help anybody who is doing anything with startups, everybody helped, literally everybody. And this is something that we should basically, in a way, also ensure that our association is going to provide to all of you who are stakeholders in a startup community. This common goal of giving, supporting, and having the joint vision of having really, our 3 to 5 years goal matching of Estonia, or even surpassing the Estonia, or even doing something together with Estonia. But really, we believe that we can easily do it because, as I said, there is definitely the momentum, there are definitely people. And this is why we wanted to have a diversity of people on the board who can represent everything that we want to work on. And Božidar, as I said, sorry, definitely I have to work on Božidar. We wanted to support people and help them with getting information how to get funded, not to do the same mistakes. And I maybe after Božidar tells what he wants to do and how you can join him, Darko can share the part with the founders and how helpful it would be for him if he had something like this and how he can help to others.
I just wanted to add before we start with Darko, just the reflection on what Eve has said. Decentralization is also very important. So it's not just us guys from Zagreb in the board of Cro Startup. We decided to also talk to some very eminent people from outside of Zagreb. So our board members also are Srđan Kovačević from Osijek, from Orca, Nikola Pavišić from Rijeka, from Infobip Startup Tribe, and there is Mario Francescevic from Split, right? Yes. So it's also very important to spread this thing, also to push it outside of Zagreb.
Yeah, absolutely, that is true, and we wanted to cover different segments, so that's why we have Mariana, who is a lawyer who knows how to deal with the government about regulation and legislation. We have Maya, who is so algebra. She's also close contact with the academia. Božidar, who is knowledgeable about financing, investment. Then us as startup founders as well, so people from the trenches who really are living and
Nicola from Infobip, who is Unicorn,
helping, exactly, and Mario, who is also going to be focused a lot on spin-offs, because what we are also seeing in Croatia is service companies spinning off their own products and actually creating startups there. But Darko is very keen on building community, right, Darko?
Yes, I would also refer to Eva's Founders Association. So for me, the most important thing, like, there's so much on the internet and you can read about VCs and you can, there's blog posts and everything, but there are so many nuances and so many things that are, let's say, maybe unspoken or are really fine detail level. And that's almost impossible to know that everybody knows everything. So, having a startup is a stressful thing as well. And it's a highly impact on your life from every perspective. So just hanging out and encouraging one another is also a big thing, So just pushing someone, you can go outside, you can go to the States, do the step, So I think that's important, and that's what's been also missing. So we've been doing that, as you said, on coffee and lunches, but this is all isolated. And so I would like to encourage this, knowledge sharing, but I wouldn't say on a structural level, because, everybody getting into a startup know what they're going into. But I would say these small nuances, listen, I tried that, it didn't work for this reason, maybe it will, work or not work for you, but at least you communicate, with someone, and you can, have some thoughts and thought about it. So for me, like in my startup, there are 3 co-founders. And I think if I was on my own, I wouldn't succeed, because I'm sharing the burden and just talking to them. And I think we need to just replicate that on the country level and have more people talking to each other. And I think that's the big thing, And also, I think now we have like these multiple generations of startups. We have the big ones, we have the medium ones, and we have the smaller ones. So I think just like having some informal mentor from the higher level startup will also help, So I want to look up, to a maybe more mature startup and just, have an ability to talk to them and just, discuss what they tried or what they think we should do. That's huge. So my idea is to actually start this founders circle where, we can meet, discuss. It doesn't have to actually produce, for me at least, like anything formally, but just have the ability to have this community and share stuff. Yeah.
And financing is also a big thing for startups, and we do still need, I think, a lot of education and advice. Can you maybe say a few words about that, Bože?
Yeah, well, the sheer fact that I was working for 20 plus years for a number of Croatian banks, and I'm actually starting a new VC fund with a number of friends from the third bank that I was not working for. Just those 2 facts were, it seems, enough for those kind people to invite me, although there are many more people who are much more qualified than I am to talk about finance, because I'm just the humble engineer. But still, yes, the fact is that Croatian startup community is definitely in a very serious need for external money. The banks are not interested really in supporting our system, because the first and foremost reason is those companies are asset light. They don't have anything but whatever is in their heads. From that perspective, banks are literally out of the equation, and money is not really coming from the outside. There's a number of funds. I'm going to talk about that later in my lecture. Number of funds, but that's not nearly enough. There are some new funds in the incubation, so to speak, but still, I think the investment level in Croatia, as compared with the rest of Western Europe, let alone US, is like 50 or 100 times less compared with GDP than it could be. And in my opinion, I think this region is really ripe for great things in the future, because the geopolitical trends. Well, thankfully, we don't have neighbors that are too unfriendly, just like Estonia has. So, from that perspective, I think the globalization process will slow down, and the companies will start looking for talent and for nearshoring to those parts of Europe. Hopefully, the countries neighboring Russia, but also I think Southeastern Europe is in a very good position to take the huge part of that nearshoring. So we have talent, we have great companies. Unfortunately, we don't have that much support from the government, and that story about the IT minister was very funny, because I immediately had an idea that the next IT minister in Croatia would be someone like, I don't know, defense minister right now, which would be like extremely funny, right? So we don't have that. Yeah, we don't have that much of a support, if any, from the government, and maybe it's better that way, because what we are having is that kind of survival bias in Croatia and in the region. Companies are basically, they learned to survive without that much money, without the support from the government. And if we can do something to support them from our association, and obviously from helping the companies out to find the new sources of funding, we would be more than happy to do so.
And maybe just to add up, when we announced the association, we said we want to work on 4 pillars. So we mentioned 2 of them, definitely Founders Circle, and definitely investment opportunities and access to finance. The 2 more are the one that is already covered by Heidi. This is EU level, let's say, affairs, and pushing the agenda of getting real benefits, to ripe the benefits of a single market. And also the part that we are really strongly committed to, and we think that we can bring the most value is basically this regulation legislative part. Eve mentioned ESOP. So this is something that we don't have in Croatia. And we know that a lot of Croatian startups are basically either doing UK or US companies to ensure that there is a vesting scheme, that there is ability to attract people and have them as key personnel, and offering them who knows where the equity, but not in Croatia. And this is something that we really want to work on and push this agenda. I know that MCHAM is already pursuing this, KPMG is helping them, and we will just onboard on those initiatives and give them a push to even advocate for those things further. The second thing that we really want to work on is this angel investment phase, and we are also working with KPMG. We are lucky to have them together, and together with CISEX, on getting this initial stage where the most of startups are basically dying out because they can't, as Božidar said, they are light in assets. They only have maybe some kind of MVP or beta that is not bankable, that is not anything, but they need initial push. And being able to implement any kind of angel investments, tax releases in this initial stage will make a huge impact. And we really want to work on things like this, on initiative like this that could bring extra value, and that could even prove that Croatia can be the leader in a solution on the startup scene, something that can be basically replicated from the Croatia to the rest of the EU other EU countries or even globally. I really think we can do it, because as we mentioned yesterday with Eve, and I'm constantly returning to that, being a small country is not necessarily disadvantage. It's also advantage, because you can get the key stakeholders on board, and you can, by doing the right maths and providing the figures, inspire people to go for it. And maybe this is not the creation mindset, but this is startup mindset. And we can maybe push, not maybe, but we will push this agenda of startup mindset to change it to become a creation mindset, to pursue things and to be able to change the things that may and will bring, I think, benefits for the whole society. So definitely these two things, as it comes to regulatory part of the story, are the two first things on our agenda. Of course, we want to work on other things like opening a bank account and being able to incorporate without having to, I don't know, to sell your kidney for the notary fees and translator fees and, I don't know, a bunch of papers you have to provide. But this is something that can be much more, let's say, in combination of the top, bottom EU level, done also by us as association from bottom up. Because as Yves said rightly, this is a joint concern of all startups in EU. And we definitely have to emphasize that and get our politicians on board to realize that we need them to sort this out, and we will provide resources, we will provide numbers, we will provide the data, and we will basically support them to support us, to give us what we need as a startup community.
Exactly. So maybe we don't need an IT minister, maybe.
Maybe.
But we do need the government to make it easier for startups to work. So it is definitely one of the areas that we are working on and have already started preparing for those discussions and are supporting the others who are also working on it. We want to make Croatian startups a little bit more known on the international scene, and in that way more attractive to whatever sources of financing, wherever we can find them. We want to encourage sharing of experiences and knowledge, and really pooling all the resources that all the startups need into one place so that it's readily available for everyone. And we want to strengthen the community, and this is one of the ways, and also, as Darko mentioned, gathering people, more people in one place so that we can talk about all aspects of having a startup. But before we conclude and invite our next speaker, who is going to talk a little bit about going global from day one, this is also an invitation to all Croatian startups and those that want to become startups to also support us and help us help back, help everyone else. You can join Cro Startup Association, and when we ping you for the data that we need to collect, because we do plan to do the first landscape of Croatian startup scene, because at the moment we have no idea how many startups we
some
have.
Some say 600, some say 6,000.
The question, yeah.
Officially, we basically have two surveys. One literally says 600, the other one says 6,000. So we should do definition first.
We will do definition first and really map. So this is also the invitation for everyone to participate in the survey when we do it. Thank you to board members of Cro Startup. And now we are going to invite Signore Francesco Borgosano from Huddle, which is a gaming startup, but he will tell all about Huddle and what we're going to do. There you go.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I'm gonna stand. But yeah, first of all, I want to thanks all the board members, the organized Croatian startup for having me. I think this is a great initiative, and I will tell more about why the startup ecosystem needs more of this initiative, not only in Croatia, but entire Europe. Italy, I'm originally from Italy, so I have to say is another of those countries that may benefit from support from the government and in general the network. But let's go through the slide. So as Adi said, so the story is about going global from day one. And the reason is that, I'll talk more about the vision. We knew since day one that we needed scale, both in terms of like people, in terms of operation, in terms of funding. So in order to achieve what we wanted to accomplish in our vision, we had to pursue this global perspective and infrastructure. So that, of course, created big challenges since the very beginning. About myself, I'm the founder and CEO of Huddle. I spent my professional career in the sports betting industry, which is an heavily regulated industry. You know, it's regulated as heavy as the banking industry because there is personal information, financial transaction, and I had the opportunity to work for large corporations after I left my university. So I worked for Ladbrokes, which is actually the oldest bookmaker in the world, 170 years of history, oldest UK bookmaker. And then I had the opportunity to work for Stars Group, which some of you may know for Poker Stars, you know, market leader for online poker. Then Kambi, Swedish company. So throughout my career, I also had the chance to work in multiple countries. You know, I lived in the UK, lived in Germany, lived in Sweden. So I had the chance to interact with, you know, multiple countries, cultures. And then in 2018, for our industry, the sports betting was kind of a pivotal year because the US market opened up. It was prior to 2018, there was a federal act called PASPA, which prohibited sports betting. And then when that opened up, of course, as you can imagine, kind of like the entire industry interest shifted toward the US market, which is going to be the largest market for our industry. So I joined actually a startup based in New York. That was my first startup experience called SimpleBet, where I had the opportunity to take actually my first operational role. So I was a COO, and that really opened up my eyes in terms of having the opportunity to interact with investors in the US, having the opportunity to set up operation in the US, managing the, you know, entire organization from a, you know, legal, compliance, finance, where, you know, prior work in a corporate environment, of course, you are part of a well-oiled machine, so everything is kind of already, you have a clear path on what to do, what not to do, so very clear process, where in a startup, you start from scratch, so you need to build everything from the ground up. So that was a great experience. And then after that, you know, I joined forces with my co-founders who are originally from Croatia, sitting here. And we decided that we wanted to pursue our own vision. So we started Huddle. What we do at Huddle, so as I said, we work in the sports betting industry, but we are a software development company. So what we do is we believe that there is a disconnection between the market demand and the technology and innovation needed to fulfill that demand. So our goal is to build a modern enterprise software solution so that gaming operators can operate on a global scale efficiently, and, you know, making sure that there is a fair and open ecosystem for you know, sports fan and bettors, so that everyone can enjoy that gaming experience. And this vision actually came from, I would say, our personal pain points. So I think this is actually one of the things that it's important for new founders. In my personal experience, it's very important that, and that will help in your trajectory when you build a company, is that you really understand the problem that you're trying to solve. So if you experience those pain points, then it's going to be easier for you to sell whatever you're building or wherever is your proposition. So as I said, myself and my co-founder as well, you know, we were working for this large corporate, and we were operating on global scale. And we had all sorts of issues in terms of, complexity of running, an international training team, or complexity of providing products for, 50 different sports, thousands of sporting events every day with very limited technology. I actually remember my first day at Ladbrokes out of university. At Ladbrokes, we're talking, I said, largest UK bookmakers, more than 2 billion in revenue every year. And my first job was actually as a quant, so I was responsible to build predictive models for sport. So when I arrived in the office, I thought that, like, those guys, they must have some amazing, technology, algorithms. Like, they are trading like billions of dollars every year. So got to my desk, and my manager is like, yeah, so this is the folder where we keep our Excel spreadsheet. And I was like, okay, I can work with that. So as I said, we really feel that there is like a massive technology gap in order to be efficient. So without going into detail, we believe that with our solution, we can help operators in basically optimize their profit, optimize their operational capability, and just in general offer better product, better experience to the user. Our journey today, so we started Huddle in November 2020. Of course, it was in the middle of a pandemic, so raising money at that time wasn't, it's never easy, but during the pandemic, there was an additional complexity because we never had the chance to, even between ourselves, like we never had a chance to meet in person for the first, 6 to 8 months of our company. We never met in person. And same with investors, we never had a chance to meet them in person, face to face. So all the kind of negotiation was very difficult. But eventually we closed our seed round of 3 million. And this is, I said, as a seed round is a sizable seed round because we knew that we needed this global scale since day one. And then we started building our company. As I said, the sports betting industry is a regulated industry, so we knew that we had to set up entities in multiple jurisdictions. So we have entities in the UK, we have entities in Croatia, Isle of Man, Delaware, and then we started hiring, and I'll talk more about that. We actually made a bet, no pun intended, in willing to operate from Croatia, which is the biggest kind of like operational and development hub for us. We have 80% of our workforce is here in Zagreb, and few other remote from Split and other areas, but from Croatia and the region in general. And now, very recently, last month, we closed our seed round. We had very good traction, get early customers, and just last month we closed our seed round of 15 million from a US investors. So very happy of what happened to us so far. Very happy with our experience. But now going on the pain points, which I think is probably what may be more interesting for the community and in general whoever wants to start something. So what are the challenges that we experience in Europe? I think there are three, especially for early stage, so seed round, there are three key stages that in Europe are very complicated when you start a company. So the access to capital, the securing the capital, and deployment of capital. So access, it's very difficult because, especially at early stage, there are very few investors, very few VC funds that take that risk. And there is no really easy way to know who they are. Like, no, there are no program, there are no conference, where in the US you have all sort of like programs at state level, local, national. So there is like very large visibility of who those VC funds are. Where in Europe, unless you're lucky in having someone in your network that has that connection, it's very difficult to know who is actually interested in investing. So the access is very complicated. There is also another aspect, which is once you have that access, of course, I mean, VC funds are in it not for charity. They want to have a return on their investment. And the fact that in Europe we have a very fragmented tax system makes even the negotiation difficult, because certain conditions that are acceptable for one investor in a country may not be that good for another investor who is going to pay more taxes on his capital gain if and when there is an exit. So the fact that there is no standardized tax for the startup investors make very difficult that negotiation phase. And then I would say last but not least, there is the deployment. I mean, once you have the capital, you need to set up the company. And you already touched upon that. And the legal, the compliance, all the professional services, banking, it really can be overwhelming. It actually was overwhelming for us. So Adult idea actually started back in 2015. So in 2015, me and Leo, my co-founder, so we got together and we had this idea of starting Huddle. At the time, though, PASPA was still on, so US market was closed. So we still believed that there was an opportunity in Europe, but we simply couldn't find investors. And even when we had some early traction from seed investors, at the time I was actually willing to go back to Italy. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to Italy. You already in Zagreb, so we're gonna set up operation between Italy and Croatia. So I went to the Chamber of Commerce to see what's the process to set up an entity, and it was really overwhelming. Like the amount of paperwork to set up an entity in Italy, and the notary, the expenses, and the process was just like, Leo, like I give up. So in 2015 we actually gave up. So that the last point about setting up operations seems marginal, but it's actually, especially for young entrepreneur like in your 20s, dealing with all lawyers and bankers can be a really overwhelming experience. So and then of course 2018, more experience. I had the experience already at SimpleBet, so in New York. So I would say we were a bit more prepared for that. But even in that case, setting up the operation, and Mario, other co-founders, and our kind of like AVP of operation can talk more. Setting up the operation was a nightmare, I would say, especially in Croatia. I'm afraid to say this, but I would say the Croatian entity was the most challenging to set up. And then on the other end, that's why we ended up setting up our entity in the US. We are a Delaware corporation. It literally took us 1 hour, fully remote, with $100, $100 fee, and 1 hour to set up the entity and everything, bank account. Actually, we even, which for me was kind of bizarre, we even opened the bank account before the entity was actually active. So the bank opened the account, and they have this kind of like concept of inactive account where they create it and then it get operated once you get the tax number, but the process is very straightforward and very easy. So as I said, we ended up being a US company, and of course it makes sense for us in order to achieve this global scale. But in general, we found that friction was very, very low compared to whatever we experienced before in Europe. At the same time, though, as I said, we wanted, and outside the bet paid off. We are very happy of having our core operation in Zagreb for a couple of reasons. I would say, first and foremost, the talent. None of us, even if they're originally from Croatia, none of us had ever had any working experience in Croatia, because we were all working for, UK or international companies. So when we started, it was like, are we going to be able to find the right talent, the right people? It's a very technical, very complex project. but we were amazed by the talent, not only from a technical perspective, like, the quality of students coming out of university. We have a very close relation with the University of Zagreb. Like, the talent, the raw talent is amazing, but also the motivation. I think the fact that there are few work opportunities really motivate these young, people to go beyond whatever is needed for the job. So we're very happy with the talent pool. I think also, and this is something where the Croatia did a very good job. We had the opportunity to bring some foreign talent to Croatia using the visa. So that was also like a very positive experience in operating from Croatia. And in general, we also noticed, like, because most of our people are software developers, we noticed that, Croatia, and I can see why, like, it's a very attractive country in terms of like people from Europe moving to Croatia, living and working in Croatia. So we found that there is a kind of an attractiveness compared to other countries in Europe. So in that regard, we're very happy of being here, and very happy to be involved with the startup ecosystem and community. But then, of course, as you can see, going back to the global from day one, I mentioned London and the Isle of Man, New York. Now we are expanding, so we have Las Vegas, Costa Rica, Denver, Colorado. So we are a global company with a very diverse and spread across multiple jurisdictions and locations. But as I said, very happy about our route here in Croatia. And ultimately on this slide, just going back to my experience, wanted to kind of like give some thought about what the EU can do to make a more startup-friendly environment. And as I said, for me, I can talk specifically about the early stage because this is where we are. We are at this point around a startup. And I think those three phases are the three areas where the EU can really make an impact. So one, and you guys are already doing it, so creating like more opportunities for like network and just get the investors and the founders closer, like just have the opportunity to talk, to know each other, to interact, because at the end of the day, especially for a seed company, having the opportunity to present is not only about pitching, it really helps you refining your proposal, refining your ideas. You get feedback from investors, you get feedback from other founders. So that network opportunity is very, very important. The second one is, and that's of course now more on the on the political side, having, and it's difficult given the nature of EU, but having a standardized system across Europe in terms of like taxes, in terms of incentive, because as I said, there are two aspects for investors. One is, of course, startups is an high risk investment. You're starting something from scratch. Of course, you're passionate, you have idea, you know the problem, you may be an expert of a specific sector, but at the end of the day, it's a very difficult thing to bootstrap a company from zero. So there has to be like an incentive for investors to deploy that capital. So that's providing those type of incentive at the time when they deploy is one area where there can be an improvement. But then the other area, as I said, is the exit, because those are, at the end of the day, for the investors, are the only two moments that really matter. It's like how much equities is getting when you start and what's the return when you exit from the company. So on the exit side, everything that can be done in terms of, reducing the capital gain tax, or I don't know, again, some sort of like, I'm not an expert in that regard, so I leave it to the expert. But those two are two aspects that can help investors get more interested in early stage startups. Because I think, and this is something we were discussing yesterday at dinner, I think Europe, for growth investments, is not that bad, or is not that behind compared to the US market, because once you are in a growth stage, it's a very different audience to the in terms of investors. You know, you talk to private equities, you talk to, you know, all these large, you know, industry leaders. They have like investment arms, like I don't know, Siemens, GE, like, so you can find access to very large round. I don't know if you're raising 100, 200 millions. I think you can find that it's actually a bit of a paradox, but it's easier, I would say, to do that type of raise rather than an early stage. Because if you're raising, like in our case, 2-3 million, it's a sizable check, but it's still like a very high risk. So it's like very counter, you know, it's against like their interest for investors to deploy that 3 million in a high risk project. And then ultimately, and again, this is something that's already been said. I mean, UK at the time was part of EU, so so in UK we actually had a very positive experience as well. But in general, everything that can be done to simplify the operation, especially early on. So again, incorporation, opening a bank account, and in general, I think another area where a lot can be done is providing the support in terms of professional service. Because again, I imagine, and yesterday at dinner, I saw him coming through. I was talking to Ante, 25 years founder. And you know, you're 25 years, you're looking like documents of like 200 pages of like legal details, financial terms. You need to understand, you know, what's the financial instrument. You know, there is like preference in terms of like liquidation preference, all sort of mechanisms. So helping founders, providing, you know, legal expertise, you know, professional in finance that can give you like advice. I think that would be very, very helpful for, and I mean, of course, the network can help, you know, as founders, we can talk to each other, but having an institution behind you, it can, because let's be honest, even for us, like, and we are, let's say, unusual founders because we came as a founders already kind of like experienced with a lot of knowledge, but there is always like an unbalanced relationship with the investors, because, you know, investors are very sharp, they're very aware in terms of like legal and finance, so when you deal with them, you are, you know, you have this short stick. So everything that can be done to level that conversation, I think it will be very beneficial for every founders. So again, in conclusion, just want to praise this initiative. I think this is a, you know, step in the right direction, and thanks again for the opportunity to share my experience.
It's my pleasure to present Hrvoje Ćosić from Aircash, Anto Širić from Sport React, Matija Žulj from Agrivi, and the panel will be hosted by our lovely Maja Berkljačić. Maja, please.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heidi, very much. So I would like to welcome you once more here at Algebra's new campus. We are very happy to have an opportunity as one of the founding members of the Cro Startup Association to host you here. And this is one of the very many panels and very many meetups that we will be hosting here. So I'm in particularly very proud to have been asked by the association to host a panel on the topic of 3 generations of startups, of Croatian startups. So why 3 generations? Because we estimate that the Croatian startup system has started more or less something like 21 years ago, more or less. Yeah, okay. And that in this period, we can actually see 3 generations of young entrepreneurs. Okay, here, who are at this point at various stages of their business development. So the first generation would actually be someone like Infobip or someone like Damir Sabol. So this is the oldest generation of the, let's say, the originals. The originals, yeah, okay. Then these guys actually created these big footsteps onto which the second generation came, and this would then be people like Hrvoje and Matija here, who continued the proud tradition. And then in the third generation, we usually count people who are like Anto, so who are now at the point where they have launched their products and where they are gathering their customer base. So without any further ado, I know that all of you here mostly know everything about these people here, but we were having a dinner yesterday night, and Eve asked us, pointed to Viljamovka and asked, so what is this? Can you tell me what is this? And then, I don't know if whether it was Hrvoje or Matija who said, so this is the so-called inspiration liquid. So this is what you drink in order to be inspired for good business. So let's start with that. So Hrvoje, could you tell us Air Cash? So was it started with a good bottle of Viljamovka, or what was at the beginning?
Not only one bottle, many bottles. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Yes, we were at the dinner. It was a nice dinner. Thanks everybody for inviting us for dinner yesterday. It's everything. It's everything. It started as one of the many, attempts and trials and errors. I can speak personally of myself. I'm so we're in the fintech. I'm basically from that space. I graduated from the Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computing, but started to work at the bank, at the Pure Finance. So, and then I found out that that there is a maths. Mathematics is always behind everything. I was lucky that I had a lot of mathematics in my education, both high school and the faculty and afterwards. And and the finance is all in the numbers. Everything is in the numbers. So that's why this is how I came to fintech. But it sounds simple now. It may be from this point of view. It can be simple, but it's always you're making fun of Viljamovka. Viljamovka is maybe we can talk of it, as when some things don't go. No. I'll promote. I will now sound like a promoter alcohol. No, you have to be patient. You have to be patient, and if you're focused and patient, results will occur. And that's it. And yesterday, in my opinion, you have to talk to people. So yesterday's dinner was great, and my opinion is also talking to people, verifying your ideas, verifying business models, sharing the thoughts, meeting new people, exchanging the experience. It's something what is important. So I think.
Can you say for your case exactly? So what was the biggest challenge when you started? So what were the biggest obstacles that you faced?
I cannot maybe specify the exact ones. I had a career in finance, in banking. I even I had a entrepreneurship career in real estate. We were investing in some real estate. And in 2008 the crisis came, so it was a pretty bad situation. We had a big debts, and then the market got illiquid. Then later on, I also came back to software. It went well. Then it didn't go well. So there were obstacles. What I can say specific, but every obstacle is interesting. You always think of how to jump over the obstacles. I think it's some people say it's not the destination, it's the path you go there. So I think from this point of view, I would say it's interesting. From the, let's say, challenging point of view, it's something, if I knew what would be in front of us, like 7 years ago when we started with the Aircash, I don't know, probably I will go the same way. Let's say regulation. We are in the finance. Finance is very regulated. And this is something what we didn't know anything about. It's regulation. So we're regulated, but a lot of state authorities, but regulators, national banks, and I think the regulation is always the challenge. And especially since we're in the EU, EU is well known for regulating everything. And now it's restricting more and more regulation. We have to follow it, And I'd say the playground in which we play, it's pretty narrow, and we have to take care of it. Also, we compete. There are competition from outside of the EU, from America and China, who don't have to abide by this regulation. So I think this is the regulation is challenging, but I think we are anticipating this and going on. That's it.
This is the way situation looks like in fintech. So what would you say, Matija, in agrotech? When you are starting an agrotech business in Croatia, what are the biggest challenges? What were perhaps the biggest challenges for Agrivi?
When you take a look on addressable market and starting it from here, we don't have so many customers in Croatia. And immediately we need to build a platform for global market, and creating platform that works across countries is not that simple on one side. But the biggest challenge wasn't even that. The biggest challenge was actually really identifying the route, how to grow in the market that is completely blue ocean. We all read about blue ocean theories, so on. And agriculture is truly that. We are not bringing better fertilizer, like in quality or cheaper one, so product for that substitutes. We are bringing something new that everybody sees as incremental cost first, and then they will see the value. So, and this is the biggest challenge overall in agritech industry per se. So identifying how to navigate that, and then we started first with focusing on those growers globally we could reach online, and those were usually SME growers. But then we ended up identifying that we were buying 60% of global volumes on Google AdWords for a very small amount of money, and you see, well, the market is not educated that much still. It's not the route to market, so you need to find completely new route. And there was a lot of challenges like that, but that's all good if you have good people and you can navigate through that. And I think that for all of us in our ecosystem, we are still a young ecosystem. We don't have many product companies. We struggle in finding good product managers. We struggle in finding salespeople that have international experience, because most of salespeople sell in Croatia. So, and this is where we all together are trying to navigate how to build a great team. Of course, if you can also afford a person that knows how to sell, that has experience in selling globally, yeah, that's great. But then even if you can find the person, you cannot afford it, because our rounds in financing are not the ones that are like in US. So you cannot compete for those people. So I would say that all that together is a nice set of challenges, but yeah.
Nicely put. I'm sure people feel very encouraged now.
I'm here today still, so.
Yes, so for you it was not regulation, so for fintech it was definitely regulation. For you it was less of a regulation, it was more of an uneducated market, which is definitely a huge obstacle. And then when we moved to Sportech, Ante, so how does 10 years later, so fast forward 10 years later from the moment when Matija or Hrvoje were struggling with these things, how does it look like starting a business in Sportech?
Yeah, for us everything was challenge because as you know, we were part of Algebra Lab, and then we were a student. Actually, I need to quit regular college in order to register a company, and we didn't know anything. I'm an engineer, so legal stuff are not familiar to me. I need to say I don't know how it was before 10 years ago, but it was nice experience, a nice ride for us, because we had several startup accelerator programs or similar programs that helped us. And you can remember our state when we were part of Algebra Lab, and also later we went through Zagreb Startup Factory program. Also after that, we went through Idea Knockout competition, and so our progress until now is going, is going in an upper direction. Now we are struggling with the fundraising, but we will close it probably in the next month. So I believe we will keep going on the same path. Until now, everything's going good. We are learning new things every day. It's a great privilege. Like, it's a great opportunity for me to be here and to talk with those experienced guys. Also, yesterday we have one great night. I had a chat with those guys. They helped me, and it's great to have an ecosystem like this so I can ask the questions. It's totally different than the standard corporating world, you know, when it's not the same. So sometimes you need to get advice just from someone who experienced that before. And I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be part of this ecosystem here.
Yes, so the ecosystem is definitely very important. But 10 years ago, the ecosystem looked fairly different. So at this point, only in Zagreb, you have at least 3 to 5 different incubation programs for startups. So, Matija, how did it look like 10 years ago?
10 years ago, I think that Zip was starting then. Yeah. Yeah, so there was first initiative, so that was then. I think that what is important. I never was afraid of asking people for help, and I always I had that luck that whoever I asked, okay, can you give me like your 15 minutes, 30 minutes, really, just to share experiences. Everybody was quite collaborative also then. So I think that usually people want to help. And this currently it's easier when you have a lot of incubation programs that push you actually to exchange experiences, so on. But even in this situation, when you have that, if you will not ask for help, you will not get it. And my experience was as well, not just here, but also globally, that people are really willing to help. So I wouldn't say that excuse for not solving things is because ecosystem doesn't exist. We need to push it. We need to push it. And I think we had that discussion yesterday. I think during the dinner, my biggest observation in the ecosystem where I see that something needs to move forward as well still today is that yes, we are getting better with financing, we are getting better with collaboration, experience sharing, but we are not getting so much better with our corporates willing to support startups to work with them. That's still going slow, and our startups need to make pilots here, need to get traction here to be able to raise rounds outside as well, to be able to get customers outside, and until that happens, we will still have slow adoptions, different things, and this needs to move on. And I think that more serious companies, corporations that are here on the market need to be aware of that, and they need to be aware of that they are that leverage that is spinning the wheel to create new ecosystem.
Definitely. So the role of corporations is something that is heavily disputed, not only in our ecosystem, but in ecosystems in general. I'm sure Estonia also shares this pain, so to say, because this is something we talked about with Eve. Harve, you had, before you came to the startup ecosystem, you were one of those, yes, who started your business life, your business career in the corporate sector, basically, yeah. So how would you say, why is the corporate sector still so reluctant in Croatia to collaborate with startups?
Okay, I was in a corporation for like 3 years, but very long time ago. So I cannot tell of myself like I built something it was my first job and hopefully last job in the corporation, and so I cannot say this corporation. I can that it taught me something. You know, like you know what we now implement. The corporations have some good stuff what we can learn. I think we in the smaller and dynamic companies, like the procedures, like controlling of the finance. Something what we think is conservative and boring, but it's necessary. Taking care of the liquidity, taking care of accounting reports. This is something what is good to learn from the corporation. This the back office procedures, the back office management, because companies in the end go bad in majority of situations because of illiquidity, not having funds, not having so I think it's important. This is something what I learned from the corporation. But as you said, I can completely agree with Matija. This is what lacks in Croatia: the willingness of the corporation to work and support Croatian technology. I'm not saying about startup, but complete technology scene. I think it's very important, and the companies that are in the lead in not supporting Croatian technology startup companies are public companies, And this is something what can be done on the state level. You know, I think it cannot do it. It cannot do it maybe officially, but it can be unofficially. If there is some kind of scene in Croatia that is growing, like Matthias said, 10 years ago it was very small. Now it's dynamic. There are many associations. It's the buzzword we're talking about. Everybody's talking about it. I think it's important that the big corporations, especially the public ones, are open. They don't have to go to us, but when we go to them and have an initiative, you know, at least they can listen to it, to the initiative. They can maybe dedicate the teams that maybe something can be done together. I can give you an example of Faircash. So, you know, we work with one, I think it's the biggest Croatian bank. It's of course 40-year-old bank, you know, but it was the thing, I think the first cooperation between traditional bank and the fintech. But it was only due to the few, I would say, very competent managers in this bank. And I think, you know, we approached them with a great idea. And this product is on the market well for 3 years and it's going well. I think, you know, when they ask me, okay, fintechs versus banks, cooperation or competition, cooperation. But it was the sole case. It was like not well proven. It was not a wide case. So definitely, you know, as you said, as Matthias said, I really agree. And this is something what can be changed. You know, and I think the association like the one which is hosting us today, and also can help in changing this attitude and this climate of the corporations supporting of the technology and startup companies, because I spoke with Anto a couple of minutes before the panel. You know, everybody needs sales. You know, firstly sales and then maybe financing. You know, because the financing will ask, okay, what did you sell? Is your business model proven? Who are your customers, you know? And definitely it's logically to sell firstly domestic markets. I think it's the obligation even, not maybe the right, and the obligation of such corporations to ensure and support Croatian technology and startup companies.
Like a round of applause. Yeah. Truly, this is one of the pain points that we have all identified. Then another pain point that is obvious when you move to fields like sport tech, where you don't have necessarily corporations to work with, but public sector in general could really very much help you in providing you cases to work with. How does this cooperation look like now?
Yeah, we just finished our beta version like a few months ago, and it was hard for us to test the product on the field because, you know, to have a good deal with some well-known club here in Croatia, we cannot go with prototype that will not work on the field. So we had a big challenge to firstly develop the prototype almost ready to the as the guys from the huddle said yesterday. They couldn't go with a prototype. Everything should work perfectly in order to have a validated product. It's the same thing with us because we are handling it's a hardware part that needs to communicate fast and needs to change a lot of messages, and everything needs to work smoothly, and also it needs to be connected to the mobile app, and everything needs to be stored. So we have a few situations where we went to the demos, and when we tried to leave our device over there and something, you know, went wrong, there was some bug, you know, something like that. So then we decided, okay, we will update this a little bit more, and then we will go and negotiate with those clubs. We have a few clubs in Croatia that we are testing our device right now. And as I said, now we are closing this round. We will finish that R&D phase, and everything is going smoothly. We have pretty good connections, and I believe that until the end of the year, we will actually cover a few well-known Croatian sport clubs in different sport areas. Yeah.
It works much better, obviously, than the cooperation with the.
What I experienced is I just talked with a few minutes ago. It's a lot easier to communicate and to work with smaller clubs and with smaller teams where I don't know there is a private coach that works individually with a few different top-rated athletes than to work with one club that's Dinamo or Gorica, because it's harder to get in the system. But as I said, we have some connections. We already start showing our product over there, and some of those players already use that product. is in the training facilities of those private coaches. So also we'll be focusing more on the sport academies. So we will design our solution that can be useful for them in a sports schools also. Yeah.
Mattia, would you say for agrotech that perhaps one of the reasons why it is difficult to cooperate with corporations is that most corporations in Croatia are actually based somewhere else, and they are here only the, so to say, the branches of the international corporations. Do you see any difference between collaborating with corporations that are Croatian or those which are only branches of big international ones?
Actually, for us, international companies are better sweet spot today. So even in Croatia as well, but globally, this is our sweet spot, global international corporations in agribusiness. And here in Croatia, I mean, this is again very specific to agriculture, and you have very few big producers, so there is a lot of SME segment. In SME segment, that's B2C. In agriculture, that's B2C. It's a farmer that during the season drives tractor whole day, and you can imagine how they will use then some system. So it doesn't work. And this is for pushing agritech to a lot of to mass marketing and especially SME segment, regulation is required. This is the same thing. How many of us would be buying car insurance if it wasn't regulated? So there wouldn't be 100% penetration, obviously. The same as we know that it's healthy to exercise daily, and it's not that all of us do that daily. So although we know that something is good, we don't tend to do always something what's good for us. And this is when penetrating, how we take a look on penetrations of new technologies. Currently, we got everybody knows that they will have bigger profit, that they will optimize their operations, but it takes some effort, and we are lazy by nature, so we don't do always what's best for us. And this is specifically for SME segment in agritech. So regulations like on food safety, securing traceability. I think you can see in news that food recalls because of too high pesticides, everything that's booming. That's never historically that has never been higher. So it's impacting our health a lot. So regulations are getting stricter and stricter there. So this will drive the adoption on that, right?
One case where actually regulation drives the adoption, whereas in some other cases it basically stifles it. Okay, great. Would you say still, Mattia, that there could be more could be done? We never like in the startup world, we never like to call for the help of mother state, yeah. Okay, so we are somehow always very cautious in that, but would you say that there are things that could be made better by the national set of regulation, by the Croatian national bodies, not only in your sector but in the startup system, ecosystem in general?
Yeah, of course, and this is still what Hrvoje said. Also, there is a lot of big companies in Croatia are partially or fully owned as well by government. So this means that they could be more proactive in supporting the ecosystem. That is one. But on the regulation side, I try to personally detach a lot from handling administration and focusing on business. But I know that internally we spend a lot of time that we wouldn't need to spend if it would be better. Although now having legal entities also in Poland, in Romania, UK, and now US. US is even more complicated than Croatia, it seems, and especially if you hire people across states, so it gets complex, very expensive. So I would say that it's not that bad. I don't see it that bad. We are better than Poland. We are better than Romania. We are much behind the UK. So altogether, on administration side, yeah, so that's probably not something that I said it's not so famous or popular to say, but yeah, it's true. It's not that bad.
Yeah, thank you. Hervé, would you say what would be your general advice to people who are now leaving universities like Anto? So when he was still a student, he was already thinking about incorporating his own business. Would you advise them, because this is also one hot topic that we are debating with this third generation, should they go first and get some experience in the business world outside of their startup, so to get a job somewhere and then to spend 3 to 5 years in a corporation and do something and then come out and do your thing, or would it be better to out after the university just to crash and do it?
Anto, what do you think? What shall I say? I don't have a right answer. I don't know. I don't know. I think everything is good. I think it depends. It depends. I think on a person by person basis. You have there is it's intuitive feeling. I think you can feel it. I think you can feel it. What Matthias said, it's important for me. It's important to talk. When you are 20, you're in 22, 3, 4, 5. You think you are smart, that you know everything. You don't know nothing. You know nothing. So it's maybe I'm joking. I'm joking. I thought that I was the smartest person on the planet when I was 25. Also in 30 now. It took me at least 15 years to be realistic, but I spoke with the people, and I have there were many before, I have an idea, but I won't tell you the idea because you will steal my idea and you will earn money. You will become millionaire. No, it's everybody can have an idea. Anybody can have 10 ideas a day, 100. If there's William Ovka, maybe 1,000 ideas a day. But the challenge is how to put idea live. How to what you're gonna do about the idea? How you gonna do? Will somebody buy this idea? And when you deliver this idea in some kind of viable service or product, will somebody buy this idea for the price that you thought it will buy? It will be purchased. Maybe you have an idea to produce super glasses, and think that the price will be 50 euros per glass, and your input cost is 45. But in the end, you find out that it can be sold only for 20 euros. And I don't know. So I think everything is good. There is no silver bullet approach. Okay, go to corporation, go there. Corporation is interesting, especially it's my opinion. I learned something about some important but boring stuff: procedures, processes, internal acts, accounting, controlling, especially. This is something what I learned. But some people learn it. I don't know, these American guys. I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg and all the guys they have learned it, and the Google guys. When they got first traction, they had good advisors and good investors who advised them. Okay, in the executive level, you have to hire guys from Morgan Stanley, from McKinsey, from BCG. They in a couple of first few years, they made this executive level, with the professional functions who did the companies like they are today. So I think no strict answer. You have to feel it. I think you know it from the inside, and you talk to as many people you can from different, not only your crew, guys with whom you watch football games and drink beer. No, you have to talk with everybody, and I think it's a good approach.
Thank you. And Antos, the last question. You have started your startup as a student. Have you, at this point, was there any moment that you have regretted? Because as an engineer, you could have been hired by, I could have sold you to I don't know how many companies, but you decided to go a different way. Has there been a moment when you have regretted this?
I believe that the average number per day is like about 5 times per day. No, as I said, I never worked in a corporation, and I worked as a student. I don't know is that a good or bad thing, but now we are building a startup on our own style. And as I said, we already did the huge mistakes, and we will do also in the next few years for sure. But we are learning from those mistakes, and those lessons are good for us. Some of them cost us more, some of them cost us less. But it would probably be better for us to have some experience. But I don't know. We like to fight with it. We learn new things so often. So I don't know. As athletes, it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. So I don't know. For us, for now, it's good. Probably it will be much more better if we will have some experience. But that's why we have those guys here. So. And Rimac is always waiting for me.
Definitely, you can always go back to Rimac. And what these guys will also tell you is that having experience is no guarantee that you will not make mistakes. Yeah. Okay. So all the experience in the world doesn't help, and I'm sure that our Darko can also share his view on that, being a corporate person first and then twice so thank you very much. For me, this was very illuminating. I'm sure that our audience has also enjoyed it.
Sorry to interrupt, but just to maybe comment on that last point, like at what point did you guys, like Hrvoje and Matija, quit your job? Like, now this is what I'm doing 100% my startup, I'm quitting my job, because this is like the crucial moment, like where investors also look at like how invested are you, and are you 100% in, maybe.
I did it very early. I was like 25 when I quit the corporation. 26, sorry. It was, and I did it. I think I did it on time. I did it on time. I think when you decide, you have to do it as soon as possible. I can give you an example of Aircash. Now we have I don't know, in the executive positions, people from the big corporations, I don't know, from the Croatian banks, from a big four in consulting. When I talk, when I was talking to our colleagues, and they was like, okay, I've worked there for 15 years, I'm not quite sure whether I will leave the corporation. And I said, okay, you have one life, do it. Why? Come on, there is no rerun. If you want to change your job from the corporation, do it. Nothing. What can go wrong? You will still be alive. You will still be healthy. What can go wrong? So if you decide to do it, do it. Just do it, Okay, I'm not working for Nike, Just do it, and it's I always say to myself, what can go so wrong? It cannot be fixed. Everything can be fixed. So.
Well, pretty the same. So I'm quite risk savvy person, because I don't believe that we are dealing with that much risk in decision making. If you don't try actually to do what you would like, you will definitely not do it. And currently, if everything fails, I'm reaching for great experience. I know that I can get a job quite fast, that I will still have enough money to drink beers with friends, so on. So nothing will drastically change in my life. So in the end, you're not taking that much risk if you actually try to realize your idea in the end. And what was important for me personally. So I had, in my previous job, I had a great job. I was managing director of the company, but I realized that I wasn't feeling inspired enough with what I was doing. And for me, that purpose, doing something where I find for myself purpose, that was the trigger. And this is why I'm still today here. If that wasn't that spark, I would probably quit 100 times so far. So I think that having that purpose in what you do is extremely important.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you guys very much. So one of the things that changed in these 3 generations is definitely access to finance. And who better to talk about the new ways and the new things, how you can actually access the finance, than our very own Božo Božidar Pavlović.
Hvala. Klikalica radi. To se zove ulazak sa stilom. Hello again. Exactly how I said earlier, I might not be really the right person to talk about that, but as one of our founders said, I always like to reinvent myself. So I stepped out of my comfort zone by moving away from the corporation a couple of years ago, where I spent like 20 plus years, and it was not a corporation, it was a bank, which is even worse. And then I have my own company where I do some consulting, and now I'm setting up the VC fund, which is something I don't know anything about, to be honest. So again, I can tell you a few things that I learned during the last 10 years when I was cooperating with startups locally here in Croatia and abroad. Also, I was advising them, I was investing in them as an angel investor, so I learned a few things here and there about when to take the money, when not to take the money. And again, I have this rare privilege to look at this problem from two different perspectives, from the startup perspective and from the perspective of a VC fund who is actually there to give the money. So first, the caveat, this piece of advice. Also, before that, I apologize to the founders and to the people in the audience who know those things already. This is aimed at like startups in early phases. And again, this advice might work, it might not work. You will learn by yourselves whether it will work or not. So this is not what's happening, first of all. No one will come out and just give you the money without asking for something in return, unless they're friends and family and fools. But let's talk about that later. Just a few generic things about the funding in Croatia. I said earlier this morning, and I keep repeating it. We are chronically underfunded. The demand is much bigger than the actual supply is, and that's why my future fund to be is there to happen as well. We have lots of talent, we have lots of great companies, we have survival bias, so we learned how to succeed to a certain extent without the proper money. And compared with the US, where the valuations are crazy and where the money still like flows like crazy, this here is a very different situation. But this might change, and that's why to be honest, I'm not very worried about this crisis and this down rounds that we are seeing, valuation changing to the lower. I'm not really afraid of companies firing people, because if they didn't fire people, tech companies, if they didn't fire people, most of them during Corona crisis, this will definitely not make them fire people. So in Croatia, we do have some VC funds. They're great. They're definitely serving their purpose, but it's not enough at all. We have just a couple of pre-seed and seed funds. We have a few private equity funds, but thankfully we have a number of new funds announced, so this will change for the better, but still after that, this will not be enough. And that's why, to be honest, I'm going to be a little bit of a local patriot here. Whenever the company reaches a certain status, then the funds from the region come in and they basically pick the cream. Yeah, they take creme de la creme companies and they finance them, which is good per se for those companies. But I would really like to see more of a pension funds, Croatian ones, investing in startups through various vehicles, because they do have certain limitations, legal ones, rather than investing in bricks and mortar, which we often see. Because it's in the end, there are funds are coming. Welcome. I want to just briefly, before I start, comment on the recent Y Combinator warning to their companies. Yeah, I'm not sure if you read it, but I think you should, because it's really a great piece of advice. They said we're in the middle of a long winter. It's a bear market out there, and you have to push the financial discipline very much. But most of this advice is basically going to the American companies, and in the US the situation was and is still very different than in the rest of the world, because there's lots of money, valuations are insane, and it's only normal that the companies should learn how to push the financial discipline. Here in our areas of the world, it's very different, and that's why I'm really not afraid of the future. On the contrary, again, as I said earlier, I think this region is going to really prosper. And an important piece of advice as well, it's not just money. There are intangible things that are out there, which is advice, which is mentorship, which is incubators, which is accelerators. They all can teach you lots of things that don't cost money. Obviously, I mean, the best way to learn is from your own mistakes, but learning from some other people's experience is actually very, very useful, and I think a number of those advices that I'm going to tell you today will lead you in that direction. So when not to take money, it's a kind of a arrogant and to a certain extent luxurious statement, because again, we're underfunded, and I don't think many companies can really afford not to take money when it's there. But there are some situations in which you should think twice. Obviously, when it's too early. Again, this is not US, and you will not get money by showing the interesting idea or the PowerPoint deck. You need to have something feasible. If you don't have a product market fit, so it means if you have an answer but you don't have the question, if you're not solving anybody's problem, then don't ask for money, because you're not going to get it. You should have a very clear MVP, or at least proof of concept, based on which somebody will give you money, somebody will trust you. There are other sources of finance. It's not just VC. You know how they say in successful companies, VC money is the most expensive money, because when the liquidity event, so to speak, I learned the lingo, yeah? When the liquidity event happens, which means IPO or strategic takeover or anything like that, then the founders say, damn, we gave too much equity to the funds. We could have been more rich, yeah, we could have been richer. But it's a relatively rare occasion, so nothing wrong in taking money from the VC. But again, sometimes there are cheaper sources of financing. For instance, Triple F or Friends, Family, and Fools. People who are giving you the money need to be aware that this money is lost, most probably. But there are friends who trust in you. There are family members who, instead of keeping money under the pillow, maybe would like to give you some of their earnings. There are fools who would believe you any sentence. So nothing wrong with that. On the contrary, this is, I think, in this region, the most common way to start your own business, by borrowing money from such people. And in my own experience, it's a great thing, because you can really be a part of the community. You could help out, at least by doing that. Yeah, crowdfunding is also a very nice way how to reach at least the starting capital for your idea. There are some EU funds together with some banks in Croatia. There are some angel investors out there waiting to help you out, especially if they buy your idea. So those are definitely cheaper sources of financing. And there are banks in the end. I hate them. The banks are as I said, startups are usually asset light, and the banks just don't get it. That part of the economy, at least in Croatia, they don't have a clue what the startups are all about. So it's the worst mistake that you could make. Go to the bank and put your flat, put the mortgage on your flat as a yeah. Don't do that ever. If the bank is really willing to give you like a very any amount of money with a nice interest rate without asking your siblings or your flat or the blood from your arm in return, then go for it. But I don't see any bank in Croatia that's willing to do that. So don't do that, please. When we're talking about VCs or any type of funds, if you don't have a clear fit, if those guys don't understand your industry, don't go for it, because they won't be able to help you. It's just a loss of time to you and to them. When VC doesn't want or cannot help you with their contacts, with their network, with the advice they're giving to you, don't go for it. I mean, again, I'm shooting my own leg here, but I wouldn't like to invest in the company that I cannot help with my own advice, with my own experience, with my own network, with my own connections. That's just a misfit, and it's not a good thing to do. And also very important, when you're taking money from the VC, you should always imagine VC becomes your co-founder. And if you cannot really picture that person from the fund as your co-founder, don't go there. Regardless of, there are some other sources of money, but if you really hate that person's ass, don't go for that. It's definitely a misfit. Or if your neighbor is willing to give you the money, but you hate him anyway because of the border in your backyard, don't go for that as well, because that guy will be an asshole in the business life as well. So be careful about those things. But once you're ready to take it, then the situation tends to change. So don't overfund. I've seen startups that raised lots of money and immediately the founder got himself a personal secretary and an advisor for whatever, sales, yeah. It brings in leisure. It's always tempting to bring your team after you get the round of funding to Bahamas for a team building type of thing. But it's the investors, they don't really want to see that kind of behavior. Lots of startups are always looking across the ocean like, oh, Silicon Valley is just waiting for us. No, they're not. They have like a pile of applications this big on their tables from all over the world, and what's the chance that your application will go through? Hardly, unless you have a killer product, which is hard to believe, to be honest. So Silicon Valley will happen if it happens, ever. So don't worry, there's time for Silicon Valley. Look around Croatia, look around the region, look around Europe, talk to investors, mingle, network, hustle, schmooze around, but don't look for Silicon Valley, really. This is, again, shooting my own leg, but I guess it's better to have more smaller rounds and build your traction, build your revenues, and then have a great relationship with your VC, with the guys who are giving you the money, then go immediately for the big valuation. Especially nowadays where valuations are shrinking, it was very common these days, last, let's say, 6 months, that the local startups are valuating their business like, 50 times sales, 50. That's insane, that's not realistic at all, regardless of the industry, regardless of the trend. So I think the valuations are going to become more modest, especially after the crisis. But again, be modest yourselves. Go for a smaller valuation. Don't wait for the big one. The big one will happen once you show the results. don't overpromise. If you say in the next year we will triple our revenues and this is not realistic at all, then don't say it to your investors. Be as realistic as possible, because once you fulfill your promise, then you're halfway through for the next round. You will get the money if you show the results. Treat VC once they're in as your co-founders, and important things, they should treat you the same. I would like to demystify this VC story, like those bankers with lots of money knowing nothing about the business. They know a lot about your business, trust me, and they can help you a lot, and they should help you a lot with many things. So treat them as your co-founders. And I think this is the most important piece of advice. Find a good CFO as soon as possible. Because I've seen it many times, people coming from the university, very, very bright guys and girls with lots of crazy programming languages, knowing them by heart, programming, they can develop anything literally, but they don't know what the balance sheet is. So what's an accounting standard? Maybe they don't need to know, yeah, but they should hire a professional to take care of that. So if you are not able to find the proper CFO, ask your VC, ask your partner, find yourselves a good person who can deal with finance as soon as possible. This will make your life easier with ESOP, with the investors, with the cap table, with the banks, with accounting, with internal control, with external control. This is going to help you immensely. And set up a proper governance. It's also important. Hrvoje said, I'm not going to go back to any corporation, but hopefully Aircash will become a corporation with a good governance. So you will be back in corporation, but that one should be different, right, than the corporations you used to work in, and I as well. And also don't rush with hiring. What the VCs, the funds, would like to see, this is called use of proceeds. Once you get the money, once you agree on the valuation, they will for sure ask you, what are you going to do with the money? And then if you say, I'm going to go for a hiring spree, they will not be so happy, yeah? Because, WhatsApp sold for like 13 billion, I think, with 55 employees only. You can do a lot with a limited number of people. It's more worth to hire one good salesperson, just like the previous panelist said, we miss salespeople who are able to go global, rather than 10 developers, to be honest, yeah? Because you're going to overpay them, because it's war for talent out there, but a good salesman is hard to find. So it's better to use the proceeds for building your marketing, for building your sales. It's relatively easy with developers. They're hard to find, but you could always outsource that certain part of the business. And last but not least, a joke on my own account. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Božo. Now we have to. That was Božidar. And now one little fireside chat before we go to lunch, because something that I mentioned when we first talked about why the association is also one of the things that we've noticed, that a lot of service companies now are also doing spin-offs. And because it's a completely other ball game to have a service company and then go build a product, a solution, so go to product company. Let's hear a little bit about that process from a person who has done that twice now, right? Daniel, please join me. And I'm trying to look at the other.
Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, everyone. I thought we were speaking on Croatian, but obviously no.
No, 'cause we decided that English is the official language of startups, so we're going,
Yeah. And it
startups need
sounds
to know.
better also.
Yeah, sounds more. We sound smarter, you want to say?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Okay, for those who might not know you that well, can you just quickly introduce yourself? And I mean, you've been around for.
Sure. Well,
a while.
my name is Daniel, and I started with Tomislav 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And I have a feeling that startup scene was so much smaller then. And so we started like 2 persons. Now the group is much bigger. So we have 3 companies, the biggest ones, The Gordian, Media Toolkit, and Bornfight. Today I'm leading The Gordian, and I'm not so involved anymore in Media Toolkit and Bornfight. But the whole group is, I don't know, 20, 250, 300, I don't know, people. And yeah, we have some experience, mostly in service-based companies, but then we started Media Toolkit, but also we had few fails. I don't know if you remember, but Social Numbers, Social Puzzle, now we have a Stethoscope, so yeah, we have some experiences, good and bad.
Okay, and just can you tell everyone, so what is The Gordian, what is Bornfight, and then what is Media Toolkit and now Stethoscope?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yep, so The Gordian is, well, digital agency, basically. So we are producing, I don't know, websites, Google, but also we are working a lot with startups. So we are working with startup growth, helping them scale, demand generation, and so on. Then we have Bornfight, which is mostly software development of products, very successful company. We have Media Toolkit, which is media monitoring tool, SaaS B2B. And now we have Stethoscope, which is like super new. So we launched that, I think, 2 months ago. But we are very, very eager about that and happy. And this is like employee satisfaction and engagement tool. So if you're a company, you do some kind of surveys and then you get feedbacks and you can see like what are the great parts of your company, where do you have problems and how to solve that problems. And now with Great Resignation, it's a huge problem on the market and everybody needs that. So yeah, that's super short story.
No, that's cool. But what I'm interested is, how did the idea to first, so Media Toolkit come about? Like what made you think, oh, maybe we should build a solution, some product? Was it to solve some of your own internal pains, or you saw some need in the market and then you decided to go in that venture? And again, the same now with Stethoscope.
Well, I think that, for example, we have this example of Media Toolkit and we have now Stethoscope, and it's totally different. So Media Toolkit, I think that we started building something around that maybe 2011 or something. And to be honest, then it was like the worst recession here, and we were like some kind of success story with agencies, and we were growing, we were hiring, we were, in all of the media, and everything what we touched was like, success. And we were super young, 24, 25, and to be honest, then we were thinking like, oh my God, like 50 people, 70, that's nothing, like let's create something, like product, it will be, 500 people, something like that. We didn't understand a lot. We were super, young, but then we just thought we have to create something more scalable. And then we had one idea, which was different than today, that will help publishers create like viral content, and it was like huge for us, and let's just do it. We didn't have MVP or something. We didn't understand anything. So this was, I would say, Media Toolkit, which was without structure, and like this process at the beginning. With Stethoscope, I think that we are older now and much more experienced. And to be honest, I really like the process which we took. So first, we started developing this for ourselves because we needed this kind of tool, and we researched the market and couldn't find something like that. So this was interesting for us. And then we didn't have still some kind of technology, but we started talking with clients about that accidentally. And to be honest, we sold 2 these satisfaction surveys without any kind of technology. And for me, this was kind of MVP. We didn't have even technology, but they were taking it and they were satisfied. So this was step number one. Then we said, okay, let's create step number two, and like really create some kind of product. But it's not real product though. So we don't have self-serve platform. We have a web page with like 3 pages. Like we have still some manual work, but we thought it will be MVP. You know, we'll spend 1 month on development of that, and this is enough MVP for our idea just to show and to see like what is the result. And we did that 2 months ago, and we created only one PR article, and we got 30 companies which reach us out, and these are not like friend companies, some unknown companies, and the feedback is amazing. So this was, let's say, the second MVP, and now in our heads, the plan is like, okay, if we grow our revenues to some number, then to really dedicate a team, and that we as a company will be investing, I don't know, maybe 10,000 euros per month or something, nothing special, but just to really, focus on a product. And then if it will be again successful, then I don't know, maybe to raise really an investment for that or to finance that on our own, I don't know. So I like this process much more. So to have some kind of idea, which we believe is good, then MVP, like 2 MVPs, and then slowly growing. And I think that's the process to go.
Okay, so you're also saying that basically experience that you had from creating Media Toolkit is something that helped you now not to do the same mistakes?
I think so, but I really don't want that. It sounds like the Media Toolkit is super successful company. Just when we started, I would say that we were young and that maybe, today we would process it something different. But the experiences for sure helped a lot. But as said, we as the Gordian also work a lot with startups. So we really grew our experience, I would say. So it helps.
Okay, but what we see is that the entire approach to running a company that is service-based and running a company that is product-based is different. How did you come about? How did you solve that issue? Did you sense those differences? Did you make mistakes because you thought that the business can be run in the same way? What are the main differences, and what is something that service companies that want to do a spin-off, like a product company, should really take care of?
Yeah. Well, I think that at the beginning, for example, our stethoscope, it's super small, and we don't have budget to have like real dedicated team or something. So to be honest, we are using resources of agency, and it's 100% integrated. But what are our challenges now, and I remember with Media Toolkit also at the beginning, you're working for clients and they are paying our bills, and let's say they are priority, and always something is happening. So let's say that your product is maybe like second priority or something. So it's much better when you can really dedicate a team. So whatever happens with the clients, you have your team 100% on the product. I believe that's better, but still I think that if you are managing the processes right and resource management, that you can work with like the same resources. It can work, but I think at the end it's better to dedicate a team, and also like you can share some stuff, but really to have not only like development team dedicated, but the whole like processes and the whole team different and structured, because I think that the sales process is totally different, marketing process is totally different. Even I would say HR segments are totally different. So of course at the beginning you will be sharing a lot of stuff, but later it makes sense, to really have focused people for that.
Yeah, that's also what I wanted to ask. What is the profile of people? How different it is than having someone, again, in the agency business and someone that is really working on developing a product? Do you see like completely different profiles, or?
Well, I think that mostly the profiles are similar, but approach to work is totally different. And maybe the best part where you can see those changes is sales or account management. So for example, if you're an agency, you have much smaller number of clients, but the sales cycle is much longer. You have to develop those relationships. You have to become a friend with your clients, go for lunch. So it's totally different, way of working. But with a product, it's totally different because you're selling a product. So usually you have very developed sales process. So you have first like demand generation segments where the goal is to get leads, then to qualify them, then somebody from, I don't know, sales takeover, then customer success management. And usually when you have a client, you have like several maybe roles, specialized roles who are talking with that client, and that's totally normal. But in service-based company, it's a bit different. And then if you look at, let's say, account manager, I think that, they can work also on the product side, they can work also on service side, but the process and the approach is very different. And that's the thing.
And how do you go about actually finding the people? Because sometimes, when we also talk to companies and, a lot of them invest a lot in employer branding to really, that everyone knows what you're doing. And now if you invested a lot in being an agency and profiling yourself in an agency and looking people for an agency, how difficult it is to find people that need to be a little bit different and have different approach and tell them, okay, we're developing something that is not an agency, but we know what we do, what we're doing, we swear. Is it difficult?
I don't
to find
know.
people?
Maybe I'm not the best person to ask. Well, first, for example, okay, we have a media toolkit. I'm not so involved there, but media toolkit is a real company, so it's not like two guys in our agency sitting together. So it's a brand, and media toolkit is employing. So I think that's not a good case. For us, it was always about culture, about people growth, and employee happiness, and we believed in that. And of course, you have to pay competitive salaries, especially today. But if you create workplace like that, you will be able to, attract talent. And I think it's very similar if you're an agency or product, because if you're a potential employee, you want to work for a company which is great, where you can grow, you can learn, and so on. So for us, I think it works. But for example, if you're a startup who is very young and you don't have maybe investment from last slide, it can be a challenge because you don't have budgets, to pay great salaries, you don't have HR. So I think then you have to sell vision, like we are changing the world, and that is the thing. I remember when we started, so with agency, but we were super startup. It was a service-based company, but we were in my apartment and we couldn't pay anybody. And the only who wished to work for us were our friends. And and you're working with that, so yeah.
Awesome. So you did say that in order to really have focus at some point on building the product, it would be great to have an internal team that is working just on that. But at some point, you most likely, and you did it with Media Toolkit, have to like take it out of the company completely and create a special entity, like totally different company, different entity, different employees, different everything. Did you feel that the moment was right? Did you know when the moment was to do it, or it kind of just happened? Or do you now with Stethoscope maybe feel that you're more confident at knowing when you should do it, or is it still a lot like go with the flow and see how it goes?
I think that you don't have like magic formula and that you say when you do this you should spin off it as a company. But I think it's like natural process. So first you have an idea, then you create MVP, then you try to dedicate a team around that, and then when you get to some scale of, I don't know, maybe employees or revenues or business maturity, it makes sense to spin it out. Because for example, if you're raising an investment, I think you have to have it somehow like separate company, because how will you manage that? Also, okay, brand is easier because Stethoscope now, we don't have even employees for that, but we have a brand for that. And okay, it's part of the Gordian, but the brand is, from client perspective, it's like separate. But I think as a company, when you grow, you have to do it. But when you have some needs, maybe when you raise an investment, maybe then, I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Media Toolkit is on how many markets? It's mostly here?
It's international.
Yeah,
I think that we have clients everywhere. So, yeah.
And Stethoscope, I'm presume you also plan to
Well,
sell it
Stethoscope,
everywhere.
we are not doing any sales because we have too much interest now. And to be honest, interest is much more from our region because we are taking, low-hanging fruits now.
No, of course, you start somewhere.
But we already have some interest from international. So I think that we have scale product, but not only the product, but also the team, and then we have to open. But this is, SaaS business, and you can immediately be global. With service-based business, that part is much harder, especially with some segments.
I'm asking that because if you plan to really go global, if you plan to take investments, and we've talked here a lot today how Croatian companies have to go usually somewhere else outside of Croatia, would you consider doing that with Stethoscope to get more investments or to have easier sales or in some markets?
Well, regarding Stethoscope, to be honest, I'm not sure what should we do because we are really super early. If we are successful, should we raise an investment? Should we finance that? I really don't know, to be honest. But I think that VC scene is really evolving. So when we raise investment for Media Toolkit from RSG, that's today South Central Ventures, it was 1 million euros. And I think in that year, for Croatia, it was the biggest investment, for the whole year. And I remember on Netokracija, it was a graph, and we were the biggest one. It was like, oh my God. And today I'm reading this Netokracija, and every 1 month I read about some startup raising 10 million, never heard about them. And also you have funds, then you had one fund. Now I think that you have several funds or potential funds with a lot of money. And I think that, the VC scene really evolved. And I think that there are great options here. But also I think that probably there are great options internationally. So what you're searching for, I think if you're small, it makes sense maybe to raise here, it's easier. But then maybe as a second bigger investment, it makes sense to go international.
So you do see also evolvement of Croatian startup scene and Croatian investment scene from when you first started?
Absolutely. But really, super evolvement, crazy. Well, we know each other for some time, but really I think so many startups, so many VCs, so many successful startups, it's crazy and it's great. And I think now IT really became mainstream in Croatia also, what 5 years ago was not the case.
Would you say it was easier for you to, again, I keep referring to both Media Toolkit and Stethoscope, but because you had an established business and you could kind of finance the beginnings, was it easier to really start with it than it was with starting the Gordian? And
I think first, it's totally different. So when you start service-based company, you don't need any funds because basically you're immediately profitable or you're not profitable, but it's much easier to start. You don't need investment, but it's much harder to scale that. With product, it's very different because you have to invest. You have to invest in product development, then in developing processes, system, and it really costs. So you need some money. So for product company, I think if you started from, let's say, agency, which is, I guess, successful, I think it's easier because you have some kind of profitability which can finance that. And also we have a lot of resources. We have HR, we have marketing, which we are not using for Stethoscope, but still we have sales team, which we can use. We have, development. So I think that it's much easier with this infrastructure. But as said, you have problems that, everybody working for clients. So this is also, a bad part. But long term, I'm not sure because if you're financing that from agency, agency also has limited profits, so it depends. If you're having big profits and you need small investment, that's fine. But when we were doing Media Toolkit as an agency, we were profitable, but not so profitable, and we needed to finance 10 people or something, and we couldn't. So we see investment for that moment was the perfect, I would say, decision for us. Now for Stethoscope, I don't know, it's too early, but we have an option. We can finance that from agency. But to be honest, I also why wouldn't we raise an investment and that somebody else also takes risk, not only us.
Good approach.
I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. And one thing that interests me personally, when you finally kind of create the internal team that's working just on the product, is there like a little bit of envy or friction within the existing employees? Now, like these guys are now working on something, they're still not bothering too much with the sales, that'll come later on. They're just working, nobody's asking them for results yet.
Well, we have that. I think, for example, Media Toolkit. Well, I'm leading the Gordian, and the Gordian is now even in separate like building, so we are not so connected, and people don't see each other so much. So we don't have this relationship. But I can say, for example, in the Gordian, without a product, you have that, because we have 15 different teams, and always you have some teams which are like stars performing, everything is gold is coming, and you have always some teams who are struggling, and you have some kind of jealousy, I think. And the problem is, it's not because of us, but the market, this is in high demand, this is not, and it happens. With Stethoscope, it's too new, but I already heard like, it's, CEO's darling and so on, and you're spending so much time there and not with us. So I guess it could happen, and I don't know how to solve that, if you have an advice.
I don't. Does anyone have an advice? Okay. So to wrap it up, what would be your words of advice to companies that, even though we have now several agencies that have spin off certain products, so to them, because you have maybe more experience because you started doing that a while ago, but also to any new existing service company that would like to develop a product, what are some key points to like really take care of?
Well, first, I think it makes sense. Well, you were also an agency, and now you're leading a product, and there are really a lot of successful cases. So Infinum with Productive, VR with Media Toolkit, Shout MN5, Q now in Jans, Stethoscope, I guess, I hope. So I think it's a great idea to do that because it's much more scalable. It's really hard to, double the agency or triple. It's really hard. So it's very scalable, very good business. But also I think that it's moving the whole company forward. So I think, Stethoscope is under the Gordian umbrella, and it really helps, people, because we are learning so much about new processes, about how to scale that, and we are growing our, I would say, like strength and power. So, we are talking now with some clients, for Stethoscope, but that's also maybe fit for the Gordian and so on. So I think like absolutely you should do that. And what are the advices? Well, first, like do it, I guess. Second one, I like this process which we took with the Stethoscope, so like slowly test, and then really create. Especially if you're an agency, you can try to do something, and if it doesn't work, just continue doing something else. So I like that process. And I don't know what would be the third. Maybe two is enough.
Any like I'm missing the word in English now. What to pay attention to, not to do? Is there anything there? Like maybe some particular mistake that you did that would be a good thing to tell the others. This is not the way to go.
I think that, for example, one big mistake which we did, but I think it's like really a rookie mistake. So I guess maybe others won't do that. So when we launched Media Toolkit, we were super self-confident, and we didn't launch only Media Toolkit. So we launched Social Numbers, Social Puzzle. Probably nobody knows about those startups because they are not active anymore. And we were like, bunch of kids running one agency with several offices already, with 3 startups, and you cannot really do that. So take some focus. I think that was like a big learning for us. And the second thing, like maybe you're successful, but always stay humble, because you are not probably you're not Mark Zuckerberg or somebody like that, and you cannot really do everything, and rather take smaller part and do it successfully than to do all the stuff. So that was the big thing for us, and big mistake, I would say. It costed us a lot. Yeah, maybe that.
So focus is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
That's what I think. Thank you, Daniel, so much.
Thank you, Heidi, and thank you, everybody.
And we're continuing with the final stretch of today's event and today's program. We wanted to hear a little bit about this new craze going on with the blockchain, crypto, NFTs, and all of that. So I'm happy to introduce Vedran Vukman, who's from our Revuto startup, to tell us a little bit about all of that. So, Vedran.
Heidi, thank you. Should we close the door? Or? Yes. Okay, perfect. Disclaimer number 1. So, presentations are not my thing, but unfortunately, crypto and NFTs are. So, I'm here because Heidi called me actually to talk about bit about those things. I'm not gonna have slides. I'm gonna just talk a bit about the crypto, why it's important, about the NFTs, why I believe they are important, why those are not just pictures, good-looking pictures, and how all of this is actually changing the financial setup that we know. Traditional financial setup, I usually said archaic financial setup. So yes, my name is Vedran. I'm a co-founder of Revuto. A year ago we had ICO, pretty successful one. We raised $10 million basically in minutes. We are dealing with a subscription economy. Our goal is actually to change how people subscribe, pay, and most importantly, how they control their subscriptions. Basically, we are doing that via mobile app, which is built on Cardano. We call it decentralized app. We have many cool features built on top of Cardano, but also the main thing that we are actually doing now is issuing virtual debit cards. Eventually, we're going to issue physical debit cards as well, which are going to be used for general spending. But again, we are mostly dealing with the subscriptions. Why? Because subscriptions nowadays are eating the world. Pretty much I'm aware that I know that you're aware of that subscription business model is actually all around us. Soon you're going to be literally buying everything on a subscription basis, even cars. So it's a no-brainer, but the problem is how we can control that. We are paying all those things with so many different debit or credit cards. We lose control of how much are we paying to whom, when, and things like that. So we want to help people to manage that better. But let's go back to the crypto. So how I got involved with the crypto is basically because I was in a need. In 2017, I came to San Francisco to raise money for my startup, and I literally had no money. I did the rookie mistake, so I spent all of my money on my startup before I raised money. I basically sold my apartment. People don't know that, and I went to and I went to San Francisco because I had to. That was my last resort. And during that time, luckily, I found myself in the right place, in the right time, and I met some amazing people among all stupid people that I met as well. So 90% of those were really stupid and dumb people who didn't want to help me. And yeah, I didn't raise money in San Francisco, as many others. So, but what happened, I was talking to people and I heard about crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum at that time, and I was curious about that, and I saw people getting rich literally over the night. Very young people, 18 years, 19 years old. And I got involved in that, and then I started to make money as well. So it was late 2017 when my portfolio was growing so fast that I literally couldn't spend money, and I was trying. So, yeah, what is so important about the crypto? So I believe that the crypto is actually part of the digital transformation of the financial system, which is again old and archaic, and it's broken. We see it nowadays. They're printing so much money to actually repair that broken system, and it's not working. So I believe that at some point it has to stop, because even now we see that inflation is also eating the world, and that's not a good setup. That's not a good future for us. Crypto, in a way, change that, and especially that setup where countries or banks are allowed to print out money as much as they want. Crypto is different because the setup is quite different. Most of the supplies of those tokens that we are seeing now are limited. And basically all the economics is working around that supply and demand thing. And crypto is such a great thing because literally just by holding money in your pocket, and if more people are coming and holding that money in their pockets, the money in your pocket is gonna worth more in the future. With fiat money, we call it that, like fiat money, the regular money, it's quite opposite. They're printing out money, and if you hold that money in your pocket, it's gonna worth less. So even now we see what actually inflation means. It means that money that you have, tomorrow you are gonna be able to buy less with it. We see the prices go up, but that actually means that the money is worth less. So even now they say 8% inflation, 20%, but the things that we see on the streets is basically gas. You know, a few days ago it was 10 kunas, now it's 16. So your money is worth less. With crypto, it's quite opposite. They say, yeah, crypto now is in a bad situation because we are in a bit of a bear market, and Bitcoin is 2 times less than all-time high. But again, with the fiat money, is even worse. Okay, and again, it's so much so little money still in crypto that when the average Joe starts to use Bitcoin and everything, or all those cryptocurrencies, that the price is gonna grow really, really high. And for me, that's a given. Okay, so I just want to explain you what I believe is the future, and also the one of the biggest things of the crypto is that crypto is actually changing in a way all the setup, because it's giving power to the users. So the system is decentralized. We don't need banks or intermediaries. We can actually exchange money freely, and we can put our money work for us in all those different setups. We call them protocols in DeFi world, in decentralized world. The same goes with the NFTs. NFTs, what is the difference between the NFT and the cryptocurrency? Cryptocurrency, when you hold it, you have, for instance, 1,000, no, it's too much money, 1,000 Bitcoins, but let's go. Even when I say 100, it's going to be a lot of money. But let's say you have 1 Ethereum or 2 Ethereums, and if you hold one or the second one, it's basically the same thing, like a kuna. If you have 1 kuna or 1,000 kuna, is the same thing. With the NFTs, it's called like NFT because those are non-fungible tokens. All of those are just specific tokens. There is just one NFT, particular NFT, and you cannot replicate them. Okay, Ethereum, Bitcoin, or all those tokens you can. There's so many out them, and you can mint them. You can mine them. Minting, it literally means when somebody issues the token, and when you mine the token, it's when actually you are approving the transactions, and you get a reward in that token. But with NFTs, you can just mint them. Somebody can mint them on the network. Doesn't matter which one, and they're unique. And in the beginning, those NFTs were just pretty pictures. And basically everything started with the CryptoPunks. They're now worth a lot of money, but those were just pretty pictures. And they had a story behind it and everything else. But NFTs are much more. So nowadays we hear about term called utility NFTs. What that means? That means that the NFT, it has a use case. It brings you some kind of benefit if you hold it. It's still transferable. You can sell it, or you can just like send it to someone, but they bring benefits, utility with them. And when you actually mint NFT, you can put different things in description of that NFT. Metadata, what that NFT actually does, and also one really good thing is that royalty feature, because for the creator of that NFT, you can put a royalty percentage, and whenever somebody sells that NFT, you get a small percentage of that sell. Just think of it as those auction houses, when they say sell you photos or some really worthy things, they take a cut of it. But here, you as an initial owner of creator of that NFT, you can always have that royalty thing. And why is that important? For instance, just think of music industry. What was happening until now? You would be an artist, sign the contract with your, how you call it that, label. Yeah, for 5 years you need to actually create 3 albums and I don't know how many songs, and then you would get money for that, but just by signing the contract, and then you would get just a little piece of money, I don't know, from, again, royalties from streaming services and things like that. But in this setup, if actually the artist makes a song as an NFT, okay, it's in a description of that NFT is actually the digital song in it, and it sells that NFT to the fans. It can reach much more, well, it can get much more money, because power is always in the fans, in those who are listening those songs. And whenever somebody actually gets or buys that NFT, also gets a royalty from those streaming services and everything, because it literally buys the rights on that song as well. So that's just one use case of the NFTs, and that's something that's now happening in the music industry, because they said, why we don't need those labels actually, to take all the cut of what we do. We're gonna decentralize that. We're gonna put them away, as the crypto did with the banks, and that works. But there's so many other things. For instance, now it's a big hit, those NFTs. There is one company called, or a project, Stepan. So they are issuing NFTs, which you actually buy. They say you buy a shoe, but shoe is actually an NFT. And when you have that shoe in your wallet, you walk around, you jog or anything, you get paid. Because there is an app, it has a GPS, and then what you can also do, you buy that NFT, you buy the shoe. Okay, for now, the shoe is, for instance, $700, the cheapest one. And then you upgrade the shoe, because it's a better shoe, and when I run for 1 mile, I'm gonna get more money. And literally, people buying those NFTs, and it's called like move to earn money. And they can earn basically $20, $30 per day just for running with that NFT. NFT, they can sell it, and they build a whole ecosystem around those NFTs. So there's just one great example, what you can do. But those NFTs can be programmable as well. Now they're so advanced, they can, they have their own life, like a Tamagotchi, okay? And they have their use case in the app or ecosystem. In a way, it sounds very crazy. I call it gamification of the financial also setup, but it opens so many possibilities what you can do with those NFTs. For instance, in Revuto ecosystem, we are also issuing or selling the NFTs. And all those NFTs, they have a purpose. Now we're gonna actually sell the NFTs called Revolution NFTs, and for those who are gonna buy those NFTs, for instance, they're gonna have a free Netflix for a lifetime or free Spotify for a lifetime. And the thing is, whenever you actually wanna sell that NFT to somebody else, whoever is gonna have that NFT in the crypto wallet is gonna have free Netflix or Spotify as well. The thing is what is happening, because if you are, what we usually do, even when you go to the gym, you pay for 6 months or 12 months because it's much cheaper, but you usually go just for 3 months there. And then what you can do with the rest of the 9 months? Nothing, you already paid it. Why wouldn't you be able to, give somebody those 9 months away so that person can use it? In a way, NFTs are actually allowing to do that. Yeah, so again, so many amazing and crazy things. And even now, so I said the NFTs are non-fungible, but nowadays they're thinking about how to actually make those fungible in a way as well. So they are fractionalizing those NFTs. NFTs can be put in smart contracts as well. So smart contracts is actually a set of the code which explains what is going to happen even with the NFTs or with the cryptocurrencies. What the smart contracts also means is when you go to bank and you open the credit line or whatever, you need to sign the contract with the bank. And in that contract is usually describes how you're going to return the money, what is the interest rate, what is going to happen if you don't return the money to the bank. But everything, all those things can be actually put in, described with the line of codes. And it's really, how would I put it? It's very efficient, because if, then, yes, no. So if something happens, if those terms are reached, immediately those smart contracts, they execute. You don't have to go to the court or I don't know what happens. So if if your collateral goes below that particular amount, is going to be liquidated immediately. So it's very efficient. With banks and with all traditional archaic system, those things last, then are inefficient. And it's all about the efficiency. Again, transformation of the digital, of the financial system. Everything what is happening now is happening for a reason. Even those autonomous cars. I've been in the States, streets are full of cars. It's not going to work. We don't have anywhere to go. How we can, just make them wider or I don't know what. It's inefficient. All those things are happening because they need to happen. With the crypto and all those things, even with the NFTs, they are here because they need to be here. We are solving things with those things in much more efficient way. And that's the future. So whoever is not believer, please take your time to investigate a bit about those things. I know that they say even like the NFTs, and which are basically the cryptocurrencies which are unique, and cryptocurrencies or the tokens themselves, they're very volatile right now because there is not much money actually in those tokens. We think there is, but compared to how much money is out there in the world, it's nothing. Okay, so even currencies like USDT or Euro, they're volatile in a way. Now we see US dollar going up. Eventually, when most of the money are going to be transferred into crypto, the same thing is going to happen with the cryptocurrencies. I don't know how much time do I have. It's okay. It's enough. Hopefully, I somehow explain you what the NFTs are. So again, not just the pretty pictures, although they have those collectible NFTs, but they're much more. Sure.
So, hello. Veteran question regarding those shoes, NFT shoes that you have. So, you buy NFT shoes on the marketplace, I put them in my wallet.
Exactly.
And they bring me daily 20, 30 USD dollars.
Yes.
But the question is here, who pays me those $20, $30? I don't know a lot about NFTs.
That's an awesome question. So, okay. I already told you that the whole market works, there is demand, there is supply. That's how you trade things, okay? And if there is a demand and less supply, the price is gonna go up. All those cryptocurrencies, they have a limited supply. So the crypto is really, really good for incentivizing the setup. Why? Because you bring in more people. More people, okay, on the limited supply of the token means that the price of the token is gonna go up. Why? Because all those setups, they also upsell you things, okay? And you need to, for instance, buy some of those tokens and stake them. Staking is like, kak se kaže oročiti na engleski? Yeah, you're depositing funds to get, they call it yield, not interest rate, okay? You get more tokens. But the whole point is to actually lock or take out from the supply as much as possible, as many as possible of those tokens, and then the price of that token goes up. So for instance, if you run now and you say you're gonna earn $20, they give you tokens, but tomorrow they're gonna give you less tokens because, the price of that token is gonna go up. You're gonna still be getting $20, but less of those tokens. And it's like, that's why in a way, I have to admit that they call the crypto, it's a Ponzi. Yeah, I'm gonna openly talk about it. But the thing is that the crypto is exploiting that basic setup that there is, in most cases, limited supply of those tokens, okay? With fiat, it's quite opposite, and those are inflationary currencies. Here is a difference. So as long as your user base is growing and you're actually releasing all those different setups and a way how to put money to work for you. I always say with the crypto, you put your money to work for you. Even with the staking, with the farming, I didn't talk about that. So you can farm your NFTs, believe it or not. They call it that way. So you can actually lock them up, because usually what those creators wanna do is to lower the supply of those NFTs, so the price of those NFTs can go up. So all those setups are actually exploiting that basic setup. So yeah, and it's the same with every project. We have that. I'm sure that you heard about the crypto.com. So what they're doing, they're giving a cashback and everything, but they're also giving other incentives to people to buy back those tokens. So for instance, if you want to have better cashback, you actually have to buy their token, stake 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, even the Obsidian, that the debit card that gives you 8% of the cashback, you have to buy their tokens for 350,000 euros in stake. So you didn't spend that money actually, but it's a win-win. It's win for them because you're actually buying their token. And just imagine how many people are buying that card. But just by staking, locking them up, they're out of the supply. Okay, even with the same demand, the price of the token is going to go up. And they're earning money, and they can give you, because they have tokens, they can give you cash back. And it's a closed loop that actually is working. So, yeah.
Why did Luna happen?
Why?
It's the same logic.
Yeah, Luna, for instance, yeah. So it's a complicated answer to that. So what basically Luna did, they have their own token, which is governance token. The community have a voting power with the amount of the tokens that they have in their pocket. And they, besides that, they actually minted out the stable coin. Stable coins are the coins which are pegged, we call them pegged to fiat money, either USD or Euro. That means that one stable coin usually is worth of $1. But how you actually make that price stable is the main question. In crypto, all those tokens is basically, again, supply demand. And if somebody is willing to pay, I don't know, for Bitcoin $60,000, it's going to be worth $60,000. But if you say, I'm gonna mint out I don't know how much of those stable coins, and they're going to be worth $1. How you actually prove that they're worth $1? There are many setups behind the stable coins. The best setup is basically to have a collateral, to actually have for each of those USDT or whatever $1 in a bank that is actually supporting that price. Some of those are using synthetics, some of those are using different collaterals, let's say so, and which are actually not stable. And then some of those are using algorithmic setups or to actually prove that something is worth $1. And with the actually Terra US dollar, they used the algorithmic setup which was based on the supporting tokens which are volatile, okay? And when this thing happened with the market crashing, and there were some also initiatives from other parts, third party, how do I put it? So they actually helped, they had an attack, they helped because they want to prove that the setup is not working basically, which isn't, that it can be broken, and they broke it. And what happened then, the setup, they couldn't change because everything is written in smart contract. They couldn't, the thing went in the death loop, spiral, and they were minting just more Luna to actually back up the USDT to bring peg up again, because that stable coin, because of all that broken setup, went below $1, and yeah, they were just printing out, and it didn't work. But basically, I believe that stable coins should be backed with real money, not just by the algorithm. Yeah. But it was a big shitstorm. And now people lost confidence in stable coins, but
I see that
topic.
Crypto is a very interesting topic, but we are already over time, so you will have to talk to Vedran on your own.
Sure, thank you.
And he's gone.
Thank you.
Last but not least, thank you for everyone who remained here. The rest will have to see it online because we are filming everything. Is Ziad from Serengeti with an interesting story of you being a founder a while back, but now using all your experience to help you create a startup within the company you're working for now? Awesome.
Thank you, Heidi. Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Ziad Regic from a company called Serengeti, and I'm working as a product manager. And before I was CEO of my own company and everything. So it was like 10 years ago. I have like my first startup, and it was the failure. All the mistakes that you today heard before from the speakers, I've been there, I done that. So everything. So what was like my biggest mistakes? It was like I didn't had a lot of knowledge about the business. I was young, I was student, and I thought that I was the smartest guy in the world. I have like a solution, and my product will change the world and everything. So idea generally was okay. It was like a mix of the Alibaba and LinkedIn. But it was like 10 years, 12 years ago, a pretty much cool thing. But you know, when you start doing it, and when you open the company and you're a student and you don't have a money, and the startup community in Croatia was just started, and a few events they were there. And what me and my teammates, what we were doing, we was like doing a lot of service tasks. We were like creating web pages, custom applications, and everything to earn the money, so that we can build our product. And what we were doing, in few times, we had one new idea to create some new business model. It wasn't from the IT at all. It was like a coffee shop or something like that. So we changed the business model. So we lose the focus on business model. And what happened with our product? It was that we lose the focus. It was like client is always right. That's the first thing when you are product manager and when you are CEO and you are developing the product. You must have your mission. A mission should be the clear sentence. Then it is like the answer always when you have a question from the client or from everywhere. Should I do that or something like that? So the mission is like answer for all the time what you need to do, and would that feature will be cool or not. So what we were working like, this client needs this thing and he will use that app, your product. Okay, cool. Let's build that feature. This client needs this. Let's build that feature. And we were like bunch of lot of features that does nothing in the all those fields. We weren't good, so we didn't solve any crucial problem for the client. But we were just like, we have that, okay, but it wasn't the good product, the good solution. And what we were doing still. So we will build more features. We will get our clients when we have a lot of other features and other things. And that was the failure. And what happened after two years? We were there for like 2 years and developed that product. And we were like also working for other clients in the service model and earn some money. And there was few good projects there, what we have done and what we have done. And after that, we went to one business angel. He's famous business angel in Croatia. And we present our revolutionary product and idea to him. And he was telling like us, okay, this is like utopia, you cannot do that. You must have a focus. What's the value of your product? And it was like called shower to us, and I was like pissed off what he knows about it and everything. So I was like all the week I was sad, and after few days, weeks, I decided to quit that product, to quit everything. In the meantime, I got the kid, and it was like also the checkpoint in my life. Okay, stop doing that, get to the real business and get to the real work. But after a few years, what I learned from this, my first startup, my first failure, I got a lot of experience in technology. I did prove some technologies that for today are like not used a lot of, but 12 years ago it was like evangelist in some kind of things. And I got a lot of knowledge about it. And I got a very good job. I got a very well paid job, and after a few years, in my experience, I got to working for this current company, Serengeti, and I got a new opportunity to start a new project, to start a new product in our new company. In our company, this company Serengeti is like service model company. and without any experience in product or something like that. But it's a development company and doing development project for other companies and something like that. And we decide to create a product. It's called FIU. And this logo, what you see, and this rocket, it's our logo. And one great thing about this project is that all experience that I have, all the problems with the startup, everything, all that knowledge and other technology knowledges and other things are built in this product. So this product is like for startups and other companies, but especially for the startups to solve some problems for them. And great thing about it is now I learned how to not do the things, how not to what mistakes not to do, and how not to go to the business, and the focus of product and to keep the value for the customer, for the product. It's most valuable thing what you need to do. So what to say? Don't be afraid of failing, because every effort that you do will pay it somehow. Maybe in the future, maybe not now, but in future, for sure. Like you will learn something, you will get something, you will get the knowledge. And that experience is that nobody cannot pay that for you. So believe that each experience will be in your CV, so you will have that for the next opportunities. And one thing that is also not so common, and it's to admit to yourself, to acknowledge to yourself that, okay, I was wrong, that wasn't the good way to do that, okay, and to learn from that, okay, it's okay to have mistakes, and especially on your own, but you must learn from your mistakes. And there is a lot of other things what went wrong, but what to say? The crucial thing is that you have specified your mission. If you cannot have like simple mission in your statement, it's like economical things, mission, vision, and everything. But it's a very good thing to do. And from the starting of your company and from the starting of the product, when you're developing, it's a good thing to have that definition. So from the start, that everyone knows what is the mission of your product, so why it exists. So it's like a universal answer for each time, and it will help you to not lose the focus. Because like me, I was losing the focus everywhere, and on the on the business model, on the product, and everything. So, but I learned something, and now I think I have my company, where I'm working there, and we have like I think it will be a good product because it has a value. Now we don't lose the focus. We are always pivoting in those things, and we found our value proposition, and we have the clients. And one more thing, don't be afraid of market. Market is your friend. So the clients, don't wait too much to get to the clients, because sometimes it would be too late. So you will spend less money if you get to the clients as soon as possible. So time to market is crucial. Okay, thank you everyone, and this is my story.
Thank you, Ziad. So I think this is a wonderful message to conclude today's day. Failure is not necessarily a bad thing. On the contrary, you only fail if you don't learn anything from it. So thank you all for being with us today, for helping us kick off the activities of the Croatian Startup Ecosystem Association. We have we've set the bar high. We are ambitious, have a lot of things that we plan to do. Follow us, support us, and see you soon in another event and gathering. Thank you.